Blood, the river of life, flows within each of us in quiet persistence. Though unseen most of the time, it is always present, moving silently beneath the surface of the skin, carrying with it the essence of vitality. To pause and consider blood is to reflect on the continuous stream that sustains every corner of the body, from the smallest cell in the fingertips to the deepest tissues of the brain. It is a story not only of biology, but also of history, of symbolism, and of a deep human awareness that this fluid is far more than just a liquid. For countless generations, people have looked upon blood as something sacred, something mysterious, something that holds life itself within its flowing currents. Imagine it for a moment, not as a technical subject in a medical textbook, but as a calm, winding river, like a stream that nourishes the forest through which it passes. Blood winds through its channels, delivering nourishment to every cell, carrying oxygen as if it were sunlight bottled up and distributed through an endless network of pathways. In turn, it carries away the remnants of life's constant work, the carbon dioxide and wastes, guiding them gently to the places where they may be released and transformed. Even in stillness, even as we sleep, this river flows without pause, a silent companion present from the first breath of life until the very last. Throughout human history, this river has captured the imagination. In ancient cultures, blood was thought to hold the spirit of life, the very energy that animated the body. To lose blood was not simply to endure an injury, but to watch life itself slip away. Rituals arose around the idea of blood, linking it to strength, vitality, sacrifice, and even connection to the divine. In the Greek tradition of humoral theory, blood was considered one of the 4 vital fluids that shaped personality and health, thought to bring warmth, energy, and balance to the human body. To the ancient Egyptians, it was an essential essence tied to the soul. Even in literature and poetry, blood has often been described as the vessel of passion, courage, and heritage, as though it is not only the fluid of life but also the keeper of memory and identity. Yet behind the symbolism lies the quiet truth of biology. Blood is not mystical in its substance, but it is wondrous in its function. It is composed of cells and plasma, each part playing a role in the endless cycle of transport, protection, and renewal. Though the body is filled with many systems, each with a defined role: the nervous system for communication, the digestive system for nourishment, the respiratory system for breath, the blood is what unites them all. It is the courier, the messenger, and the sustainer. Without its constant flow, no organ could endure for long. It is this interconnectedness, this steady work carried out in silence, that makes blood feel almost alive in itself. Not simply a fluid, but a living system of motion. From the moment the heart first begins to beat in the developing embryo, blood makes its presence known. In that earliest rhythm, life is defined not by words or thoughts, but by a steady pulse, a gentle pumping of crimson fluid through the smallest of vessels. With every contraction, the river of life extends its reach, pushing outward into the growing body, shaping its survival. As we grow, that same river flows faster, stronger, carrying with it the energy of food turned into fuel, and the breath drawn from the air, transformed into oxygen, bound for distant tissues. Even when we are unaware, the soundless beat of the heart and the endless motion of blood never cease. To think of blood is also to think of movement. Unlike water resting in a pond, blood is defined by its circulation. It is always in motion, cycling in loops that connect every part of the body. The great arteries branch into smaller vessels, then into the microscopic web of capillaries, and finally return by way of veins. Each trip is like a journey, carrying supplies outward and bringing back what must be removed. In its motion, blood teaches us something gentle about balance, that life is not only about receiving, but also about giving away, about exchange, about a cycle that never ends. In its color, blood has long fascinated us as well. The vivid red of oxygen-rich blood, seen when a small cut appears on the skin, has been a reminder of life's fragility and intensity. Beneath the skin, however, it flows in deeper shades, darker when carrying carbon dioxide back toward the lungs. These colors are not symbolic but real, produced by the iron in hemoglobin. Yet even here, the human imagination has added layers of meaning. Red became the color of vitality, of warmth, of strength, while darker tones suggested mystery, hidden depths, and the unseen currents within. The very presence of blood also links us to all other living beings. For while humans may consider their blood special, it is in fact a feature shared across the animal kingdom, though in different forms. Some creatures have blood that is blue, green, or even transparent, depending on the molecules they use to carry oxygen. This variety reminds us that life has found many ways to move its inner rivers, and though our blood is crimson, it is but one chapter in the wider story of living fluids. Still, for us, our red river remains a central symbol of life itself. It is easy to forget blood's presence, hidden as it is beneath the skin. Yet every heartbeat reminds us that it is there, flowing, moving, sustaining. It is with us when we climb a hill and feel the warmth of exertion in our muscles, when we blush with sudden emotion, when we feel the gentle pulse at the wrist or temple. These are glimpses of the river within, hints of the continuous journey happening in silence. To think of blood in this way is to be reminded of the quiet constancy of life itself, a rhythm that asks nothing and gives everything. As this river flows, it also connects the moments of our lives. The blood that flows within us today contains the iron atoms once forged in distant stars, carried into our world through cosmic explosions billions of years ago. That iron now binds oxygen in our red blood cells, sustaining us with every breath. In this way, the river of blood is not only personal but cosmic, linking us to the ancient origins of matter, to the vast story of the universe itself. Each pulse of blood carries not just oxygen and nutrients, but also the memory of starlight, the echoes of creation carried quietly within. Thus, when we call blood the river of life, we are speaking not only in metaphor, but in truth. It is the current that sustains, the bridge between systems, the silent companion that never leaves. To reflect on blood is to reflect on life's persistence, on the endless flow that begins before our first memory and continues until our final breath. Gentle, unceasing, and vital, it is the quiet force that makes all things possible. As we begin our journey into its mysteries, let us hold in mind this simple image: a river flowing endlessly, carrying with it the essence of life, always present, always moving, always sustaining. 2. The circulatory pathways. The river of blood, though invisible to the eye, moves with great precision through an intricate network of pathways. This circulation is what gives the river its true character. Without movement, blood would be no more than a still pool, but within the body it is defined by motion, cycling endlessly, a continuous journey that begins and ends at the heart. To picture the circulatory system is to imagine a vast network of roads and trails, some broad and straight, others narrow and winding, all leading back to the central hub that keeps the flow alive. In every moment, the body carries out this process, silent yet powerful, ensuring that oxygen reaches tissues, nutrients reach cells, and wastes are carried away. At the center of these pathways lies the heart, a strong but gentle pump that sets the rhythm of circulation. It does not forcefully drive blood with a single push, but rather with a steady cycle of contractions and relaxations. each beat sending a wave of fluid into the arteries. The sound of the heartbeat, though often unnoticed, is the audible echo of these movements, a reminder of the mechanical yet deeply organic system that keeps us alive. From the heart, blood flows outward into the great vessels, and from those great vessels into smaller branches, each one narrowing and dividing until the river becomes a web of countless streams. These streams, in turn, reunite, bringing the blood back once more to its source. It is a closed loop, without beginning or end, and within its quiet rhythm lies the continuity of life. The arteries are the great highways of this system. Thick-walled and strong, they are built to withstand the pressure of blood, leaving the heart. With each contraction, blood surges into them, creating a wave that can even be felt as the pulse beneath the skin. Arteries do not simply carry blood in a straight line. They branch again and again, like the limbs of a tree, dividing into smaller arterioles and finally into capillaries. These divisions ensure that the flow reaches every distant corner of the body. No cell is too remote, no tissue too hidden, for the branching of the arteries ensures that oxygen and nutrients can arrive everywhere they are needed. If the arteries are the highways, the capillaries are the narrow trails that reach directly into the landscape of the body. They are delicate and thin, so fine that red blood cells pass through them in single file. It is here, in these quiet corridors, that the most vital exchanges take place. Oxygen leaves the red blood cells, diffusing into tissues, while carbon dioxide moves into the bloodstream to be carried away. Nutrients absorbed from food are delivered here, while wastes from cellular work are gathered. In these tiny, almost invisible vessels, the true purpose of circulation is fulfilled. Though they are small, they number in the billions, forming an immense web that ensures every cell, no matter how distant, is connected to the river of life. From the capillaries, blood begins its return journey, now darker in color, carrying the carbon dioxide and wastes it has gathered. This return occurs through the veins, the counterpart to the arteries. Unlike arteries, veins do not experience the powerful surge of pressure from the heart. Instead, they carry blood more gently, guided by valves that prevent backflow, and aided by the movement of muscles that squeeze them during motion. In this way, blood finds its path back to the heart, steadily and without haste. It is a quieter part of the journey, but no less important, for without return, the loop would remain unfinished. To follow the path of blood through the body is to witness two great circuits working together. The first is the pulmonary circuit, where blood travels from the heart to the lungs and back again. In this journey, blood releases the carbon dioxide it has carried and receives a fresh supply of oxygen. The second is the systemic circuit, where oxygen-rich blood travels out from the heart to the rest of the body and returns again depleted. Together, these two circuits create a rhythm: out to the body, back to the heart, out to the lungs, back to the heart once more. It is a dance of continuous exchange, each step flowing seamlessly into the next. The lungs play a special role in these pathways. As blood enters them, it flows through countless capillaries wrapped delicately around the air sacs known as alveoli. With every breath, oxygen from the air moves into the blood, while carbon dioxide from the blood moves into the air to be exhaled. This exchange is effortless, powered by simple diffusion, yet its effect is profound. With each breath, blood is refreshed, transformed from dark to bright, ready once more to deliver life throughout the body. The journey to the lungs and back is short, but it is essential, the renewal of the river that allows the greater systemic circuit to continue. The systemic circuit, in contrast, is vast. From the heart, oxygen-rich blood flows into the aorta, the great artery that arches upward and downward, sending branches to the head, arms, abdomen, and legs. From there, the blood flows outward, dividing again and again, until it reaches the fine capillaries of muscles, skin, and organs. In the brain, it nourishes the neurons that shape thought and memory. In the muscles, it delivers oxygen to power movement. In the digestive tract, it carries away nutrients freshly absorbed from food. In the kidneys, it brings wastes to be filtered and removed. Everywhere it flows, it completes a cycle of delivery and collection, maintaining the balance of life. It is easy to imagine circulation as a mechanical system, a pump and pipes moving fluid through a loop. But in truth, it is more like a living landscape. The blood does not simply flow. It interacts, exchanges, and transforms as it passes through each region. In the lungs, it breathes. In the intestines, it feeds. In the kidneys, it cleanses. In the muscles, it energizes. Each stop along the way is a quiet moment of connection, and together they form the continuous circle of life. The speed of this circulation is also remarkable. In a single minute, an adult heart pumps roughly 5 liters of blood, the entire volume of the body's supply. In moments of exertion, this amount may increase several times over, as the river flows faster to meet the body's needs. Yet in rest, the flow slows, conserving energy, but never stopping. Whether in sleep or in wakefulness, in stillness or in motion, the circulatory pathways continue their steady work, faithful and constant. To reflect on these pathways is to realize that we live in harmony with a rhythm far older than thought or memory. Long before we were aware of our own existence, the circulation of blood had already begun, carrying nutrients, carrying oxygen, maintaining balance. It continues now, quietly, without demand for our attention, yet sustaining every moment of our being. The circulatory pathways are not only biological structures, but also reminders of life's constancy, a flowing network that unites every part of us in an endless cycle of renewal. 3. Plasma, the silent sea. If blood is the river of life, then plasma is its hidden ocean, pale golden sea in which all the other elements float. It is easy to think of blood as red, since that is what we see when it appears at the surface. But in truth, much of its volume is not red at all. Nearly half, and often more than half, is plasma, a liquid so clear and unassuming that it can be overlooked. Yet within this liquid lies the secret to circulation, for without plasma, red blood cells could not travel, white blood cells could not patrol, and platelets could not respond. Plasma is the medium that makes the river flow, a gentle tide that carries life forward with every beat of the heart. To imagine plasma, one might picture a calm, golden light, almost transparent, drifting endlessly through the body. In appearance, it is mostly water, and indeed water is its main component, making up about 90% of its volume. This water is the solvent of life, the universal medium in which countless molecules dissolve and travel. Within it move sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, hormones, electrolytes, proteins, and wastes. Plasma does not simply carry these substances at random. It delivers them with precision, ensuring that every cell receives what it needs, and that byproducts of metabolism are collected for removal. It is not loud or dramatic in its work, but steady, like a quiet sea whose tides always keep the shore nourished and clean. Suspended in plasma are the great proteins that define much of its power. One of the most important is albumin, a humble yet vital protein produced by the liver. Albumin maintains what is known as oncotic pressure, a delicate balance of water between blood vessels and tissues. Without albumin, water would seep uncontrollably from the blood into the spaces between cells, leaving circulation depleted and tissues swollen. By holding water within the vessels, albumin preserves the volume of the river, ensuring that it flows smoothly and evenly. Alongside albumin are globulins, a diverse group of proteins that include antibodies, the defenders of the immune system. These proteins float silently, always ready to bind to invaders, neutralize toxins, and carry out the hidden battles of defense that keep us safe. Another major player is fibrinogen, a protein that remains inactive until called upon, when it transforms into strands of fibrin to form clots and seal wounds. In this way, plasma holds not only nourishment but also the seeds of healing. Plasma is also the carrier of hormones, those delicate chemical signals that allow one part of the body to communicate with another. The thyroid gland releases its hormones into plasma, and they travel to every cell, adjusting metabolism. The adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline, and these two ride the current, preparing the body for stress or helping it to recover. Insulin from the pancreas moves through plasma to guide glucose into cells, ensuring a steady supply of energy. Without plasma as the messenger, these hormones would never reach their distant targets, and the body would lose its harmony of coordination. The silent sea is, in this way, also a sea of communication, carrying signals to and from all points of the body, linking them together in unity. Electrolytes, too, find their home in plasma. Sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, and bicarbonate ions dissolve in its watery medium, each one essential to balance. Sodium and chloride maintain fluid distribution and electrical gradients. Potassium helps muscles, including the heart, contract with proper rhythm. Calcium not only strengthens bones but also acts within blood itself, triggering clotting cascades and enabling nerve signals. Bicarbonate serves as a buffer, keeping the blood's pH within its narrow, life-sustaining range. These ions may be invisible and silent, yet they are the currents within the sea, shaping its flow, its pressure, and its delicate chemistry. The quiet equilibrium they maintain is a testament to the subtle power of plasma. Plasma also carries the nutrients that fuel every cell. Glucose, the simple sugar derived from food, flows through plasma to be absorbed by tissues that need energy. Amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, travel to muscles, skin, and organs, where they are used to build and repair. Lipids, carried in special particles known as lipoproteins, move through plasma on their way to provide energy and form cell membranes. Vitamins, whether water-soluble like vitamin C or carried on proteins like vitamin D, drift gently in the stream, available wherever needed. Even the smallest molecules of life find safe passage in this ocean, each one reaching its destination because the plasma has carried it there. But just as it delivers, plasma also carries away. Carbon dioxide, the waste of respiration, dissolves partly in plasma on its way back to the lungs. Urea, the byproduct of protein metabolism, travels through plasma to the kidneys for removal in urine. Bilirubin, the yellow pigment left after red blood cells are broken down, is transported by plasma to the liver, where it is processed and excreted. These wastes, though unwanted, are not neglected. Plasma accepts them gently, holding them until they can be released from the body, keeping the inner environment clean and balanced. The river, after all, is not only a provider but also a cleanser. In times of injury or illness, plasma reveals another aspect of its nature. It becomes the highway for immune cells, inflammatory molecules, and clotting factors, all rushing to the site of need. When infection occurs, plasma carries white blood cells to the battle. When a wound opens, plasma delivers fibrinogen and platelets to seal it. When fever rises, plasma distributes heat throughout the body, regulating temperature. It adapts without complaint, shifting its composition to meet the body's demands, as if the silent sea can stir itself into waves when the moment calls. The beauty of plasma lies also in its constancy. It does not stop or rest. In every moment, it continues to circulate, blending, transporting, delivering, and cleansing. Even as we sleep, the plasma flows, carrying glucose to the brain, removing waste from muscles, distributing warmth evenly. It is the unnoticed companion of every thought, every breath, every heartbeat. Though unseen, it is always working, its pale golden tide connecting every cell of the body to the whole. In medicine, plasma holds a special place. When people donate blood, plasma can be separated and given to patients who need clotting factors, antibodies, or albumin. It can save lives in emergencies, restore balance in illness, and carry healing into those who are unwell. This practical use is only possible because of its natural richness. The same properties that sustain us in health can also be harnessed to help others. Thus, plasma is not only the sea within us, but also a gift that can be shared. When viewed under a microscope, plasma may appear unremarkable, a faintly yellow fluid with few structures to admire. Yet its simplicity is deceptive, for within that fluid lies complexity beyond measure. It is the medium of exchange, the ocean of life in which cells drift, proteins unfold their tasks, and countless molecules travel to and fro. It is the stage upon which the drama of circulation plays out, and without it, there could be no river at all. To reflect on plasma is to realize that sometimes the most important forces are the quietest. It is not dramatic like the beating heart, nor vivid like the red cell, nor fierce like the white cell. It is soft, calm, steady, and unassuming, yet without it, nothing else would move. It is the silent sea that holds the river of life together, a golden tide that flows through us, always, unnoticed, yet indispensable. In its stillness, it teaches us something gentle, that life is often carried not by force, but by quiet constancy. 4. Red blood cells, the carriers of breath. Within the river of blood, there are countless travelers, each with its own purpose. Among them, the most numerous, and perhaps the most iconic, are the red blood cells. They are the carriers of breath, the silent couriers of oxygen, delivering the gift of air from the lungs to every distant tissue. To think of red blood cells is to imagine a fleet of tiny boats, each one loaded with precious cargo, moving steadily through the bloodstream. Without them, the body would be deprived of its most essential fuel, and life as we know it could not continue. Their form, their function, and their journey together create one of the most elegant stories in human physiology. A red blood cell, known scientifically as an erythrocyte, is a small, round disc with a slight indentation at its center. This shape is called biconcave, and it is more than just a curious detail. It gives the cell flexibility, allowing it to bend and twist as it squeezes through the narrowest capillaries, and it increases the surface area available for the exchange of gases. The cell itself is quite simple compared to others in the body. It has no nucleus and no internal organelles, which means it cannot divide, cannot synthesize proteins, and cannot repair itself in the usual ways. It exists purely to carry oxygen, a single-minded specialist shaped perfectly for its task. In its simplicity lies its beauty, a reminder that sometimes, in biology as in life, focus creates efficiency. At the heart of each red blood cell's function lies hemoglobin, a protein of remarkable design. Each molecule of hemoglobin is capable of binding oxygen, holding it tightly in the lungs where oxygen is abundant, and then releasing it gently in tissues where oxygen is scarce. This ability depends on iron, the metal at the core of hemoglobin's structure. It is iron that gives blood its red color, and it is iron that makes oxygen transport possible. Each red blood cell contains millions of hemoglobin molecules, and each molecule can carry 4 oxygen molecules at once. Together, this creates a vast network of oxygen delivery, a silent and ceaseless transfer of air transformed into energy. The life of a red blood cell begins in the bone marrow, the soft tissue hidden within bones. Here, stem cells divide and differentiate, gradually taking on the form of erythrocytes. As they mature, they produce hemoglobin, filling themselves with this vital protein until there is no room for much else. Then, in a final act of commitment to their role, they eject their nuclei and organelles, shedding the machinery of complex life in order to become streamlined carriers. Once released into the bloodstream, they circulate freely, joining the countless others already moving through the body. Their lifespan is finite, usually around 120 days, after which they are removed and recycled by the spleen and liver. In their place, new red blood cells are constantly created, keeping the population steady, ensuring that the river of life never runs dry of breath. The journey of a red blood cell is both vast and intimate. It begins as the cell passes through the lungs, where it encounters alveoli, the tiny air sacs surrounded by capillaries. Here, oxygen from the air diffuses into the blood, binding to hemoglobin. The red blood cell, now loaded with oxygen, leaves the lungs bright with color, its cargo secure. From the pulmonary circuit, it is propelled into the systemic circulation, carried by the surge of the heart's beat into arteries that branch into ever smaller vessels. Eventually, it arrives at a capillary bed near a tissue in need. In muscles, neurons, skin, or any other cell, the oxygen levels are lower than in the red blood cell. This difference creates a natural gradient, encouraging oxygen to detach from hemoglobin and move into the tissues. The cell, now unburdened, continues its journey, darker in color, ready to return to the lungs and be refreshed. This cycle repeats again and again, a quiet loop of giving and renewal. The efficiency of this system is striking. Each red blood cell makes its full circuit of the body in less than a minute. With billions of them circulating at once, the amount of oxygen delivered is staggering. And yet, the process is so seamless that it goes unnoticed. We do not feel the passage of red blood cells through our veins. We only feel the results, the energy in our muscles, the clarity of our thoughts, the warmth of our skin. In their silence, these cells sustain everything we do, never drawing attention to themselves, never ceasing in their task. But red blood cells do more than carry oxygen. They also transport carbon dioxide, the waste product of metabolism. Though most carbon dioxide is carried dissolved in plasma or as bicarbonate, a portion binds directly to hemoglobin. In this way, red blood cells act as two-way couriers, delivering oxygen and carrying away carbon dioxide in the same journey. This dual role keeps the balance of gases in the body steady, maintaining homeostasis. It also ensures that the breath we draw in and the breath we release out are both part of the same cycle, linked by the work of these tireless cells. The number of red blood cells in the body is carefully regulated. Too few, and the tissues suffer from lack of oxygen, leading to fatigue and weakness. Too many, and the blood becomes thick and difficult to pump, straining the heart. The hormone erythropoietin, produced by the kidneys, serves as the key regulator. When oxygen levels fall, the kidneys release more erythropoietin, stimulating the bone marrow to produce additional red blood cells. When oxygen levels are sufficient, production slows. In this way, the body adjusts naturally to its needs. Even when we travel to high altitudes, where oxygen in the air is thin, the body responds by making more red blood cells, a quiet adaptation that allows us to endure in thinner air. Red blood cells also carry within them the subtle markers that define blood types. On their surfaces are proteins and sugars that form the ABO system and the RH factor, the identifiers that determine compatibility for transfusion. These markers do not affect the cell's ability to carry oxygen, but they influence how the immune system recognizes self from non-self. In this way, red blood cells carry not only oxygen, but also identity. The quiet signatures that distinguish one person's blood from another's. Their life eventually comes to a natural end. As red blood cells age, their membranes grow less flexible, and they can no longer squeeze easily through the narrowest capillaries. The spleen, a quiet organ of filtration, recognizes these aging cells and removes them from circulation. Yet nothing is wasted. The hemoglobin is broken down, the iron salvaged and sent back to the bone marrow to be reused in new cells. Even in death, the red blood cell continues its service, contributing to the creation of the next generation of carriers. It is a cycle of renewal, as constant as the river itself. To reflect on red blood cells is to see the elegance of simplicity. They do not think, they do not change, they do not perform countless tasks like other cells. They do one thing, and they do it perfectly. They carry breath. Each one is a vessel of oxygen, a fragment of life in motion, a small but essential part of the greater whole. Without them, there would be no endurance, no clarity, no continuation of life. With them, the body becomes a symphony of activity, each cell receiving the breath it needs, each organ sustained in harmony. When we imagine blood, we often imagine it as red, and this is because of these very cells. They give the river its color, its warmth, and its vitality. Yet they are more than color. They are life in motion, flowing ceaselessly, delivering air to tissues, and carrying away waste. To think of them is to think of the countless invisible journeys happening within us every moment, the tireless circulation of carriers that never rest. They are the quiet breath within the blood, the unseen wings of life that lift us from one heartbeat to the next. 5. The story of hemoglobin. At the very heart of the red blood cell's quiet work lies hemoglobin, a protein both elegant and powerful, without which the river of blood would not truly be a river of life. To think of hemoglobin is to think of a key, a delicate structure designed perfectly to unlock the bond between air and living tissue. Its story is both ancient and ongoing, a tale of chemistry, of biology, and of adaptation. It is hemoglobin that gives red blood cells their purpose, their color, and their strength, transforming the invisible oxygen in the lungs into a resource that can be carried throughout the body. Without it, life would stumble, for oxygen would dissolve poorly in plasma alone, and the tissues would starve. With it, however, oxygen flows freely, every cell nourished, every organ sustained, every breath transformed into energy. Hemoglobin is a large protein, but its beauty lies in its structure. Each molecule is made of 4 subunits, known as globins, which fold together into a spherical shape. Nestled within each subunit lies a heme group, a small but vital structure containing a single atom of iron. It is this iron atom that binds to oxygen, one molecule at a time. Since hemoglobin has 4 heme groups, it can carry 4 oxygen molecules in total, like a ship with 4 sails, each one catching the wind of life. This binding is not static but cooperative. When one oxygen molecule attaches, the protein changes shape slightly, making it easier for the next one to bind. With each successive attachment, hemoglobin becomes more willing to accept oxygen until it is fully loaded. Conversely, as it begins to release oxygen, each departure encourages the next, creating a cascade of giving. In this way, hemoglobin ensures efficient loading in the lungs and efficient unloading in the tissues, guided by the subtle chemistry of cooperation. The iron at the heart of hemoglobin is more than a functional detail. It is also the source of blood's red color. When oxygen binds to iron, the complex reflects light in such a way that blood appears bright crimson. When oxygen is released, the blood becomes darker, a deeper red. This shifting of color is not just symbolic, but physical, a visible sign of the dance of oxygen and hemoglobin. It has fascinated people for centuries. This changing hue of life, leading to myths, rituals, and reverence. Yet behind the color is simply iron, a metal forged in the cores of ancient stars, scattered across the universe in cosmic explosions, and incorporated into living bodies. To realize that each hemoglobin molecule carries within it the remnants of starlight is to see the river of life in a larger, more cosmic light. The story of hemoglobin is also a story of adaptation. Oxygen is essential to energy production, and yet oxygen by itself is difficult to transport. It does not dissolve well in water, and plasma, being mostly water, could carry only a small fraction of what is needed. Hemoglobin solved this problem by evolving as a specialized carrier, binding oxygen in the lungs, where it is plentiful, and releasing it in tissues, where it is scarce. Over millions of years, this protein has been refined, fine-tuned, and preserved across species, so vital to life that its structure remains remarkably similar in animals, from humans to birds to fish. Its universality is a testament to its perfection, a design so effective that evolution has chosen to keep it nearly unchanged. Yet hemoglobin is not limited to carrying oxygen. It also helps transport carbon dioxide, the waste gas produced when cells use oxygen to create energy. While most carbon dioxide dissolves in plasma or is carried as bicarbonate, a significant portion binds directly to hemoglobin. This happens not at the heme group, but at different sites on the protein, showing hemoglobin's versatility. Even hydrogen ions, byproducts of metabolism, can bind to hemoglobin, allowing it to buffer the blood and maintain pH balance. In this way, hemoglobin is not only a carrier but also a regulator, helping to keep the river of life in harmony. The bond between oxygen and hemoglobin is not unchanging but sensitive to the environment. Temperature, pH, and the presence of carbon dioxide all influence how tightly hemoglobin holds oxygen. In active tissues, where metabolism is high, carbon dioxide levels rise, acidity increases, and temperature climbs. Under these conditions, hemoglobin's grip on oxygen loosens, and it releases more readily. This phenomenon, known as the Bohr effect, ensures that oxygen is delivered where it is most needed, to the tissues that are working hardest. In contrast, in the cooler, less acidic environment of the lungs, hemoglobin holds oxygen more tightly, loading itself efficiently. It is as though hemoglobin can sense where it is and adjust its behavior accordingly. A quiet intelligence written not in thoughts but in chemistry. Hemoglobin also plays a role in development, adapting across the stages of life. In the womb, the fetus relies on a special form called fetal hemoglobin, which has an even greater affinity for oxygen than adult hemoglobin. This allows the unborn child to draw oxygen from the mother's blood across the placenta, ensuring nourishment and growth. After birth, fetal hemoglobin is gradually replaced by the adult form, suited to life outside the womb. This transition is one of the many gentle changes that mark the beginning of independent life, a reminder of how hemoglobin adapts not only to environments, but also to stages of existence. Disorders of hemoglobin reveal just how central it is. In anemia, a lack of hemoglobin leaves the body weak and fatigued, deprived of oxygen. In sickle cell disease, a change in the structure of hemoglobin causes red blood cells to assume a rigid, curved shape, making circulation difficult and painful. In thalassemia, the production of hemoglobin is impaired, leading to fragile cells and chronic oxygen shortage. These conditions, though challenging, also highlight the essential nature of hemoglobin. When it falters, the entire system of life falters with it. Yet even here, the body strives to adapt, creating new pathways, compensating where it can, reminding us of the resilience woven into our biology. In modern medicine, hemoglobin continues to be a focus of study. Measuring its levels in blood tests reveals much about health, and therapies often aim to correct its deficiencies. Scientists have even explored artificial substitutes, hoping to create molecules that can mimic hemoglobin's work in times of need. While no substitute has yet matched the elegance of nature's design, the effort itself shows the awe hemoglobin inspires. It is not just a protein, but a symbol of life's precision, a molecule that embodies the union of chemistry and existence. To meditate on hemoglobin is to see not only the details of biology, but also the harmony of life. It is the silent worker, binding oxygen when it is abundant, releasing it when it is scarce, buffering acids, carrying wastes, adapting to conditions, and shifting across the stages of life. It is at once simple and complex, fragile and powerful, small and immense in its importance. Without it, the river of life would lose its breath. With it, every cell receives the air it needs, every organ functions, and every moment of life is sustained. Thus, the story of hemoglobin is not only the story of a protein, but the story of survival itself. It is the thread that links breath to movement, air to thought, starlight to blood. Quietly, invisibly, it works within us, moment after moment, never resting, never ceasing, always binding, always releasing. To know hemoglobin is to know the essence of life, captured in the embrace of iron and oxygen, carried on the river of blood, flowing endlessly, silently, eternally. 6. White blood cells, the gentle guardians, amid the ceaseless flow of red blood cells, which carry oxygen with tireless devotion, there exists another group of travelers. They are fewer in number, often outnumbered hundreds to one, but their presence is no less vital. These are the white blood cells, also known as leukocytes, the gentle guardians that protect the body from harm. While red blood cells nourish, white blood cells defend, forming an invisible shield against the countless microbes, toxins, and injuries that threaten life each day. They do not carry breath or deliver nutrients, yet they give us something equally precious: safety. Their work is quieter, more elusive, and often unnoticed until illness arrives, but they are always there, circulating patiently, waiting for the moment when their guardianship is needed. A white blood cell is different in form and in function from the red blood cell. Unlike their crimson counterparts, leukocytes have nuclei, internal structures, and the full machinery of a living cell. They can divide, produce proteins, and adapt to new challenges. They are versatile, able to change shape, to leave the bloodstream and enter tissues, and to communicate with one another in ways that form a coordinated defense. They are fewer in number because they are not needed everywhere at once. Instead, they wait, like watchful sentinels, ready to respond with precision when the call comes. Though grouped under one name, white blood cells come in many kinds, each with its own role. Neutrophils are the most numerous, and they are often the first responders. When bacteria slip past the body's barriers, neutrophils rush to the site, engulfing invaders and breaking them down. They live fast and die young, often sacrificing themselves in the act of defense, forming part of the pus that may collect in a wound. Their work is humble yet essential, a quiet reminder that life often depends on sacrifice. Alongside them are lymphocytes, the thinkers and memory keepers of the immune system. These cells do not simply attack. They recognize, they remember, they adapt. Some lymphocytes, known as B cells, produce antibodies, tiny proteins that float in the plasma, ready to bind to specific invaders and mark them for destruction. Others, the T cells, act directly, killing infected cells or coordinating the broader immune response. In their memory lies the secret of long-term protection. the reason we do not catch the same illness twice, and the foundation upon which vaccines build their strength. There are also monocytes, large and steady cells that transform into macrophages when they leave the bloodstream and enter tissues. A macrophage can live for months, patrolling the same territory, cleaning up debris, engulfing microbes, and releasing signals that call for reinforcements. They are the caretakers of the immune system, as much janitors as warriors, ensuring that tissues remain clear and safe. Eosinophils and basophils, though less common, play important roles as well. Eosinophils help defend against parasites and contribute to allergic reactions, while basophils release histamine and other chemicals that increase blood flow and draw other immune cells to sites of injury. Each type of white blood cell is like a different member of a community, each with its own skill, and together they form a network of guardianship that is both adaptable and resilient. The movement of white blood cells is one of their most remarkable traits. While red blood cells flow passively with the current, white blood cells are capable of active motion. They can sense chemical signals released by injured tissues or by other immune cells, and they move toward those signals in a process known as chemotaxis. When infection or injury occurs, blood vessels in the affected area become more permeable, allowing white blood cells to slip out of circulation and into the tissues. Here, they move with purpose, extending parts of their membrane to crawl between cells, seeking out invaders or damaged structures. This ability to leave the bloodstream and act within tissues sets them apart from other blood cells, giving them access to every part of the body that might need protection. The guardianship of white blood cells is not always a battle. Much of the time, it is vigilance. They patrol quietly, circulate without conflict, and remain in readiness. But when they do act, their power is immense. They can unleash enzymes that break down bacteria, produce reactive oxygen molecules that destroy invaders, and release cytokines, chemical messengers that summon more cells to the site of danger. These responses can cause swelling, redness, and warmth signs of inflammation that we recognize as the body's way of healing. While these symptoms may be uncomfortable, they are evidence of white blood cells at work, surrounding the injury, cleaning the wound, and preparing the tissue to recover. Their memory is perhaps their most fascinating gift. When a pathogen enters the body for the first time, white blood cells respond slowly, learning its features, recognizing its antigens, and developing the right antibodies to neutralize it. But once the invader is defeated, some of these cells remain as memory cells. If the same pathogen returns, the response is swift, strong, and often so effective that we never even feel ill. This ability to learn and remember creates the foundation of immunity. It means that the guardians are not only present in the moment but also preparing for the future, building a library of experiences that strengthens protection over time. The balance of white blood cells is as important as their presence. Too few, and the body is left vulnerable to infection, as happens in conditions where the immune system is weakened. Too many, and the body can turn its defenses against itself, causing autoimmune diseases where tissues are attacked as though they were foreign. In this balance lies the delicate wisdom of the immune system, a constant negotiation between vigilance and restraint. White blood cells must know when to fight and when to stand down, when to unleash their power and when to preserve peace. Their guardianship is not only about strength but also about discernment. In the larger story of blood, white blood cells remind us that life is not sustained by nourishment alone. Oxygen and nutrients are essential, but without protection, the body would be overwhelmed by the invisible world of microbes that surround us. Every breath we take, every mouthful of food, every touch of the environment introduces new challenges, and it is the white blood cells that quietly meet them. They do not ask for recognition, and most of the time we are unaware of their work, but they are always there, the gentle guardians, keeping the river of life safe as it flows. To reflect on them is to see the body as more than a machine. It is a living community, guarded, maintained, and cared for by cells that act with precision and purpose. Each white blood cell is small, almost invisible, yet together they form a shield that has allowed humans and countless other creatures to thrive in a world filled with challenges. Their vigilance is soft but enduring, their memory long but adaptable. Thus, in the river of life, white blood cells are the guardians, floating patiently, waiting, watching, and protecting. They remind us that life is not only about the flow of breath, but also about the preservation of balance, the defense of harmony, and the gentle strength that ensures the body can continue its endless journey. Their presence is both hidden and profound, a silent watch that never truly ends, a guardianship as constant as the heartbeat, as faithful as the river of blood itself. 7. Platelets, the healers in miniature. In the flowing river of blood, there are countless red cells carrying oxygen and many white cells standing guard against harm. Yet among them drifts another group of passengers, smaller than either, almost fragmentary in appearance, and yet of enormous importance. These are the platelets, sometimes called thrombocytes, the healers in miniature. They are not whole cells in the traditional sense, but fragments of larger cells, delicate shards of cytoplasm released from giant precursors in the bone marrow. Despite their small size, their role is mighty. They are the first responders when a vessel is injured, the ones who sense danger before any other, and the ones who act with remarkable speed to preserve the continuity of the river of life. Without them, even a small wound could become a threat. With them, the body can seal its injuries, conserve its strength, and continue its endless rhythm of circulation. To picture a platelet, imagine something far smaller than a red blood cell, only a fraction of the size, drifting invisibly in the plasma. Under a microscope, they appear as irregular discs when at rest, but when activated, they transform, extending tendrils and becoming sticky, ready to latch onto surfaces and each other. They are tiny pieces of a larger whole, yet they act as if they carry an ancient knowledge of healing. They are constantly attentive, always ready to notice when a blood vessel wall has been broken. In their vigilance lies their power, for injury is unpredictable, and it requires a rapid response. The journey of a platelet begins in the bone marrow, within the giant cells known as megakaryocytes. These enormous cells grow to extraordinary size, their cytoplasm filled with granules and fragments waiting to be released. From the edges of these giants, thin extensions form, breaking off into the bloodstream as thousands of platelets. Once released, the platelets circulate freely, carried along by the current, waiting for the moment when they will be needed. Their lifespan is brief compared to some other cells, usually around a week to 10 days. But during this time, they are constantly vigilant, patrolling every vessel, searching for any sign of disruption. When a blood vessel is injured, the smooth inner lining of the vessel, known as the endothelium, is broken. Beneath this lining lies a matrix of proteins such as collagen that normally remain hidden from the bloodstream. When exposed, these proteins act like a signal flare, attracting platelets instantly. The platelets rush to the site, adhering to the damaged surface, sticking firmly where the break has occurred. This is the beginning of clotting, the first step in a carefully orchestrated process. As more platelets arrive, they release granules filled with chemicals that attract still more platelets, creating a growing cluster, like the gathering of stones to dam a stream. The cluster expands rapidly, sealing the break with a temporary plug. This initial response is swift but fragile. To make it stronger, platelets interact with proteins in the plasma, including fibrinogen, through a cascade of chemical reactions known as the clotting cascade. Fibrinogen is converted into fibrin, long strands that weave themselves through the platelet plug like threads through a net. The result is a stable clot, one that can withstand the pressure of flowing blood and hold until healing is complete. In this way, platelets do not act alone but as part of a partnership, calling upon the plasma proteins to reinforce their work. The cooperation of fragments and molecules creates a seal that is both delicate and resilient, a living bandage that forms in moments. It is important to see that the work of platelets is not only mechanical but also signaling. They release substances that constrict the blood vessel, reducing blood flow to the area and minimizing loss. They release chemicals that draw white blood cells, inviting guardians to protect against infection. They release growth factors that stimulate the surrounding tissue to repair itself, encouraging new cells to grow and knit the wound closed. Thus, platelets are not only patchers of breaks, but also initiators of healing. Their activity marks the beginning of recovery, a signal to the body that it must mend. The balance of platelet activity is delicate. If they respond too little, bleeding can become dangerous, as in conditions such as thrombocytopenia, where platelet numbers are too low, or in disorders where their function is impaired. If they respond too much, clots can form where they are not needed, blocking vessels and causing harm, as happens in thrombosis. The body must maintain this equilibrium, ensuring that platelets act only when and where they should. To achieve this, the endothelium of healthy vessels releases signals that prevent platelets from sticking unnecessarily, keeping them calm as they circulate. Only when a break occurs is this inhibition lifted, allowing the platelets to act. This balance is a quiet masterpiece of regulation, a harmony between vigilance and restraint. In everyday life, we rarely think about the work of platelets. A small cut closes within minutes, a bruise fades with time, and we move on. Yet behind these simple events is a symphony of cellular action. Platelets are the first players, stepping onto the stage without hesitation, performing their role with precision, and then withdrawing once the task is complete. Without them, the smallest scrape could bleed endlessly. With them, the wound is sealed, the danger averted, and healing begins before we even notice. The importance of platelets becomes even clearer in medical settings. For patients who lose blood in surgery or trauma, platelet transfusions can be life-saving, replenishing the body's supply of healers. For those with disorders of clotting, therapies are designed to adjust platelet function, calming them when they are too active or stimulating them when they are too passive. In these ways, medicine has learned to work with the natural wisdom of platelets, guiding their activity to support the body's needs. To reflect on platelets is to see the beauty of smallness. They are fragments, not whole cells, yet their role is vast. They do not carry oxygen or defend against microbes. Yet without them, circulation would be fragile and life uncertain. They are the healers in miniature, the ones who respond without hesitation, the ones who build the first bridge across an injury. They remind us that strength is not always in size or in number, but in readiness, in swiftness, and in the ability to act at the right moment. In the greater river of blood, platelets are like tiny seeds of repair, drifting quietly until called upon, then blooming instantly into action. Their service is brief but essential, their presence humble but profound. Every scar we carry, every healed wound, every time blood has stopped flowing and life has gone on, we owe in part to their work. They are the hidden architects of recovery, the silent partners of resilience, the healers in miniature who keep the river of life whole. 8. The Cascade of Clotting. When the surface of a blood vessel is broken, something remarkable begins to unfold. What might seem like chaos, a wound spilling blood into the open, immediately transforms into a carefully orchestrated process of repair. This process, known as the clotting cascade, is one of the most intricate and well-balanced systems in the body. It is called a cascade because it is like a waterfall of events, each step triggering the next, each molecule activating its neighbor, until a clot is formed. It is not a single action but a chain reaction, a sequence that flows with inevitability once begun. To observe it, even in imagination, is to witness nature's way of turning fragility into strength, of turning injury into healing. The clotting cascade begins with the simple recognition of damage. When a blood vessel is cut or torn, the smooth lining of endothelial cells is disrupted, exposing the tissues beneath. This exposure acts as a signal to platelets, drawing them to the site like moths to a flame. They arrive quickly, clinging to the exposed collagen, forming a temporary plug. This is the first step, the initial dam placed across the flowing river. But the platelet plug is fragile, easily displaced by the force of blood. To make it strong, the body calls upon the clotting cascade, a deeper, more enduring system of reinforcement. Within the plasma, there exists a series of proteins known as clotting factors. They drift silently, inactive, waiting for the right signal. Each one is numbered, from factor I to factor 13, though the numbers are not in order of their discovery. These proteins are like instruments in an orchestra, each one playing its part when the time is right, creating harmony from potential silence. When the vessel is injured, the first notes are struck, and the cascade begins. The process can be thought of in two pathways, though they ultimately converge into one. The intrinsic pathway is triggered by damage within the vessel itself. It is like an internal alarm, activated when blood comes into contact with surfaces it does not normally touch, such as the exposed collagen of a torn vessel wall. The extrinsic pathway, on the other hand, is triggered by external trauma. It begins when tissue factor, a protein normally hidden inside cells, is released into the bloodstream. Tissue factor acts like a flare, signaling that damage has occurred and that clotting must begin. Though described separately, in the body both pathways often activate together, one amplifying the other, ensuring that the signal is strong and the response swift. As the cascade unfolds, clotting factors activate one another in a sequence. Each factor, once triggered, becomes an enzyme that activates the next. It is a chain reaction, multiplying in power with each step. The pathways converge at factor X, a pivotal point in the process. When activated, factor X joins with factor V to form a complex known as prothrombinase. This complex has one purpose: to convert prothrombin, an inactive protein, into thrombin, an active enzyme. Thrombin is the central player of the clotting cascade, the conductor who directs the final movements. Thrombin's task is to act upon fibrinogen, another plasma protein. Fibrinogen is normally soluble, drifting invisibly in plasma, but under the touch of thrombin, it is transformed into fibrin, long insoluble strands that weave themselves into a mesh. These strands wind through the platelet plug, binding it together, strengthening it, turning it from a temporary barrier into a lasting clot. What began as a fragile gathering of platelets becomes a woven fabric of fibrin, flexible yet firm, capable of withstanding the pressure of circulating blood. The wound is sealed, not by chance, but by design, the product of countless molecular steps leading to this moment. Yet the clotting cascade does not end with the formation of fibrin. Thrombin itself plays multiple roles, feeding back into the cascade to accelerate its own production, ensuring that the process is robust. It also activates factor 13, which stabilizes the fibrin mesh by cross-linking the strands, making the clot even stronger. This final act ensures that the barrier is not easily dissolved, that it holds firm until the vessel itself has healed. The clot is not just a plug but a scaffold, a structure upon which tissue can repair itself. The elegance of the clotting cascade lies not only in its complexity but also in its balance, for just as too little clotting can be dangerous, leading to uncontrolled bleeding, Too much clotting can be equally harmful, blocking vessels and starving tissues of oxygen. To prevent this, the body maintains checks and balances. Natural anticoagulants such as antithrombin, protein C, and protein S circulate in the blood, damping down the cascade once the clot is secure. They act as brakes, ensuring that clotting does not spread uncontrollably. The clot itself is also temporary, meant only to last until healing is complete. Once the vessel has repaired, another system known as fibrinolysis takes over. Enzymes such as plasmin dissolve the fibrin mesh, breaking the clot apart, returning the blood to its normal flow. In this way, the cascade is not an end but a cycle, beginning with injury, forming a clot, and ending with dissolution when the danger has passed. The importance of this balance is seen most clearly in disorders of clotting. In hemophilia, a genetic condition, one of the clotting factors is missing or defective, and the cascade cannot proceed as it should. Even minor injuries can lead to prolonged bleeding, as the fragile platelet plug cannot be reinforced by fibrin. On the other hand, in conditions such as deep vein thrombosis, the cascade may activate inappropriately, forming clots where there is no injury. These clots can block blood flow, causing pain, swelling, or even life-threatening complications if they travel to the lungs. These examples remind us of the delicate line between healing and harm, and of the remarkable precision required to keep the cascade balanced. To reflect on the clotting cascade is to see the body's wisdom in turning vulnerability into resilience. A wound is a break, a weakness, a potential threat. But from this moment of fragility arises a cascade of strength, a chain of events so complex and so well coordinated that it seems almost like choreography. Platelets rush to the scene, clotting factors awaken. Thrombin takes the stage, fibrin weaves its threads, and the wound is sealed. The blood itself becomes the healer, the river learning how to dam itself, how to preserve its flow by momentarily stopping it. It is a process both humble and profound. We may see only the surface, the drying of blood at the edge of a cut, the formation of a scab, but beneath that surface lies a hidden symphony of proteins, enzymes, and cells, all acting in harmony to restore wholeness. It is a reminder that within us, at every moment, there are systems of care far beyond our awareness, silent processes that guard us, heal us, and preserve us. The clotting cascade is one of these, an unseen guardian of continuity, ensuring that the river of life can flow without end. 9. Blood types and compatibility. The river of life that flows through our veins is shared by all humans. Yet it is not identical from one person to another. There are subtle differences in the surface of red blood cells that divide humanity into groups, and these groups determine whether one person's blood can safely be given to another. These groups are known as blood types, and they represent one of the most delicate and fascinating aspects of biology. To the eye, all blood looks the same, red, warm, and vital. But on the microscopic level, each person carries markers that make their blood unique. These markers do not affect the cell's ability to carry oxygen, nor do they change the cell's structure. But they do matter greatly when blood is shared. To understand blood types is to understand not only the quiet complexity of the human body, but also the care that medicine must take to respect those differences. The most well-known system of blood grouping is the ABO system. On the surface of every red blood cell are proteins and sugars that form antigens. In the ABO system, there are two main antigens, A and B. If a person's cells carry antigen A, they are said to have type A blood. If they carry antigen B, they are type B. If they carry both, they are type AB. And if they carry neither, they are type O. These differences may seem small, but they matter greatly to the immune system. The body is trained to recognize its own antigens as safe and to treat foreign ones as invaders. This means that a person with type A blood has antibodies in their plasma that will attack type B cells if they appear. A person with type B blood will attack type A cells. Those with type O blood have antibodies against both A and B, while those with type AB blood have none. In this way, the simple presence or absence of antigens and antibodies creates a system of compatibility that must be respected whenever blood is transfused. The second major system of grouping is the Rh system, named after the rhesus monkey in which it was first discovered. In this system, the key antigen is called D. If a person has this antigen, they are Rh positive. If they do not, they are Rh negative. This distinction is equally important, for just as with the ABO system, the immune system will react strongly if it encounters an unfamiliar Rh antigen. A person who is Rh negative will produce antibodies if exposed to Rh positive blood, and this can cause serious reactions if not carefully avoided. Together, the ABO and Rh systems define the most common way of describing blood types, such as A positive, O negative, or AB positive. The importance of these types becomes clear in the practice of transfusion. When a person loses blood due to injury, surgery, or illness, transfusion provides a way to restore the river of life. But for transfusion to be safe, the donor's blood type must be compatible with the recipient's. If it is not, the recipient's immune system will see the donated cells as foreign, triggering a powerful reaction that can destroy the cells and cause harm. This reaction is called hemolysis, and it is a reminder of how fiercely the body defends its identity. For this reason, blood banks carefully test and match blood types before transfusion, ensuring compatibility and safety. Among the types, some have earned special names. Type O negative is often called the universal donor because it lacks both A and B antigens and the Rh antigen, meaning it can be given safely to almost anyone. This makes it especially valuable in emergencies when there is no time to test a patient's blood type. On the other hand, type AB positive is called the universal recipient because individuals with this type carry all the antigens and therefore produce no antibodies against A, B, or Rh. They can receive blood from any type without conflict. These designations highlight the practical significance of blood types, transforming a microscopic detail into a matter of life and death. Yet blood types are not merely medical categories. They also represent the quiet variety of humanity, shaped by history, evolution, and geography. The distribution of blood types varies across populations. In some regions, type O is most common, while in others, type A or B predominates. These patterns reflect ancient migrations, selective pressures, and chance. Some researchers suggest that certain blood types may have offered survival advantages against particular diseases, allowing those types to spread more widely in certain parts of the world. For example, type O blood has been linked to a reduced risk of severe malaria, a disease that has shaped human history in many regions. Such connections remind us that the diversity of blood types is not random but part of the long story of humanity's adaptation to its environment. Blood type also carries significance beyond biology. In some cultures, it has been associated with personality, compatibility, or destiny, though these ideas are not supported by science. In Japan, for example, blood type has often been linked with traits of character, in much the same way that astrology assigns meaning to birth dates. While such beliefs are cultural rather than biological, they reveal how deeply blood types have entered the human imagination. Even when we cannot see them, we find ways to weave them into our understanding of identity. From a scientific perspective, however, the meaning of blood types is practical. They are markers of identity, small molecules that distinguish one person's blood from another's. They matter most when blood must be shared, whether in transfusion, in organ transplantation, or in pregnancy. In pregnancy, for example, Rh incompatibility can arise if an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive child. During birth, small amounts of the baby's blood may enter the mother's circulation, prompting her immune system to create antibodies. In a future pregnancy, these antibodies could cross the placenta and attack the red cells of another Rh-positive child, causing harm. To prevent this, medicine has developed treatments, such as injections of antibodies that neutralize the Rh antigen before the mother's immune system reacts. This careful management of blood type compatibility is yet another way that the silent markers of red blood cells influence life. The story of blood types reminds us that unity and diversity exist together in the river of life. We are all sustained by blood, all nourished by the same circulation of oxygen and nutrients. Yet each of us carries a signature, a subtle difference that marks us as unique. These differences can divide us if ignored, but when respected, they allow us to share blood safely, to give and to receive, to extend life from one person to another. Blood types thus become not only scientific facts but symbols of both individuality and connection. To reflect on them is to see how small details can shape great outcomes. A single antigen on the surface of a cell, invisible to the naked eye. A single letter A, B, AB, or O can make the difference between life saved and life lost. Yet in understanding these differences, we find ways to work together, to match donors with recipients, to give the gift of life across the boundaries of individuality. In this sense, blood types are both a reminder of our uniqueness and a pathway to our shared humanity. Thus, in the endless flow of the river of life, blood types are like quiet signatures carried on every red blood cell. They do not change the purpose of the cell, nor its role in carrying oxygen, but they shape how cells are recognized, how they interact, and how they can be shared. They are small details with great significance, hidden patterns that ensure the harmony of transfusion and the safety of life. To know them is to respect the subtlety of biology, and to recognize that even in the smallest differences, there lies a story of care, of balance, and of connection. 10. Blood as a transport system. The river of life is not simply a flow of cells and fluid. It is a transport system, a vast network of delivery routes and collection paths that touch every cell of the body. Just as roads and rivers carry goods across a nation, blood carries the essentials of life across the human body, reaching even the smallest, most hidden corners. Every moment, it delivers oxygen, glucose, amino acids, lipids, vitamins, hormones, and countless other molecules, while at the same time collecting waste products to be removed. This ceaseless circulation ensures that no cell is left isolated, that each part of the body remains connected to the whole, nourished, balanced, and sustained. The most immediate and vital cargo carried by blood is oxygen. Red blood cells, with their hemoglobin molecules, bind oxygen in the lungs and release it in the tissues. But blood's role in transport does not end there. Alongside oxygen, blood carries the energy sources derived from the food we eat. When a meal is digested, carbohydrates are broken down into simple sugars, proteins into amino acids, and fats into fatty acids and glycerol. These nutrients are absorbed into the bloodstream through the lining of the small intestine. From there, they join the flow of plasma, traveling to the liver for processing, and then to tissues across the body. Glucose provides immediate energy. Amino acids serve as building blocks for proteins, and lipids supply long-term fuel and structural components for cell membranes. The bloodstream ensures that each cell receives its share, no matter where it resides. Hormones, too, ride the current of blood. These chemical messengers are secreted by glands such as the thyroid, pancreas, adrenal glands, and pituitary. Once released, they travel through plasma, reaching target cells near and far. Some hormones act quickly, like adrenaline, which surges through the bloodstream in moments of stress, preparing the body for action. Others act more slowly, like growth hormone or thyroid hormones, which adjust metabolism and development over time. The blood allows these signals to be carried from one part of the body to another, creating a network of communication that coordinates the body's functions. Without this transport, each organ would work in isolation, unaware of the needs of the whole. With it, the body becomes a symphony, each part responding to signals, each function harmonized. Minerals and electrolytes are also transported by blood. Sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, and phosphate all circulate in plasma, maintaining balance and supporting countless processes. Calcium, for example, is needed for muscle contraction and blood clotting, while potassium is vital for the rhythmic beating of the heart. These ions move in and out of cells as needed, and the blood ensures their concentrations remain steady. Even small changes can have dramatic effects, and so the transport of electrolytes is carefully regulated, their levels maintained within narrow ranges. Blood is thus both a carrier and a regulator, ensuring stability even as conditions change. Blood also transports the body's defense molecules. Antibodies, produced by white blood cells, circulate freely, seeking out pathogens. Complement proteins float silently until activated when they assist in destroying invaders. Cytokines act as signals, coordinating immune responses. These elements move with the plasma, always available to be called into action. Without blood as their medium, the immune system would lose its reach, unable to patrol the vast spaces of the body. By carrying them, blood extends their vigilance everywhere, ensuring that protection is never far away. Equally important as delivery is removal. As cells work, they produce waste: carbon dioxide from respiration, urea from protein metabolism, lactic acid from muscle activity, and countless other byproducts. If these accumulated, they would disrupt the delicate balance of the body. Blood prevents this by collecting waste and carrying it to the organs of excretion. Carbon dioxide is carried to the lungs, where it is released with each breath. Urea is carried to the kidneys, where it is filtered and excreted in urine. Other wastes are brought to the liver, where they are processed, detoxified, or prepared for elimination. In this way, blood serves as a river of cleansing, as well as a river of nourishment. The transport system also extends to temperature regulation. Heat is produced by cellular metabolism, especially in muscles, and blood carries this heat throughout the body. When the body needs to release excess heat, blood vessels near the skin widen, allowing more heat to radiate away. When the body needs to conserve warmth, these vessels narrow, directing blood toward deeper tissues. In this way, blood acts as a medium of thermal transport, distributing heat evenly, preventing local extremes, and maintaining a comfortable balance. Another aspect of blood as a transport system is its role in connecting the digestive system with the rest of the body. After food is broken down and absorbed, the nutrients enter the portal vein, which carries them first to the liver. The liver acts as a processing center, regulating glucose, storing glycogen, detoxifying harmful substances, and releasing nutrients as needed. From there, blood distributes these processed nutrients to tissues across the body. This connection ensures that energy from food is not released all at once, but is balanced and distributed steadily, matching supply with demand. The efficiency of blood's transport is staggering. In a single minute, the heart pumps the entire blood volume through the body. In this time, oxygen is delivered, waste is collected, nutrients are shared, and signals are transmitted. This constant motion means that no cell is ever far from its needs. Even the most distant cells, buried deep in tissues, are no more than a few micrometers from a capillary, ensuring that exchange is always possible. The design of the circulatory system, combined with the carrying capacity of blood, creates a transport network of remarkable speed and reliability. The importance of this system becomes clear when it falters. In circulatory shock, when blood flow is reduced, tissues are deprived of oxygen and nutrients, and waste accumulates. In anemia, when hemoglobin is reduced, oxygen transport suffers, leaving the body weak. In dehydration, when plasma volume falls, the transport of nutrients and electrolytes becomes unstable. These conditions remind us that the transport system must remain steady for life to continue. When it is strong, we hardly notice it. When it is weak, the fragility of life becomes clear. Yet in its strength lies its quiet beauty. The blood flows without fanfare, carrying oxygen from the lungs, glucose from the intestines, hormones from distant glands, and wastes from every tissue. It is a system of connection, ensuring that no cell is forgotten, no organ left unsupported. To reflect on it is to see the body as a community, each part dependent on the others, and blood as the messenger that keeps them united. Thus, blood as a transport system is more than a biological function. It is a reminder of the harmony of life, of the balance between giving and receiving, between nourishment and cleansing. It is the quiet courier that delivers breath and food, carries away waste, shares warmth, and transmits messages. It is the road, the river, and the bridge. Without it, the body would fall into silence. With it, life continues, seamless and unbroken, sustained by the ceaseless motion of the river of blood. 11. The river of waste removal. The river of blood is often celebrated for what it delivers: oxygen to our cells, nutrients to our tissues, and hormones to coordinate the rhythms of life. Yet just as vital as delivery is removal, every cell in the body is constantly working, constantly burning fuel, constantly producing byproducts. Without a way to collect and carry these wastes away, the inner environment would quickly become toxic. The bloodstream is therefore not only a courier of nourishment but also a river of cleansing. It is the system that ensures balance, sweeping away what is no longer needed and carrying it to the organs designed for elimination. In this gentle cycle of giving and taking away lies the harmony of life itself. Perhaps the most immediate waste to consider is carbon dioxide, the quiet counterpart of oxygen. Every time a cell uses oxygen to release energy from glucose, carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct. This gas cannot be allowed to accumulate, for in excess it would make the blood acidic and disturb the balance of the body. Blood collects this carbon dioxide in several ways. Some of it dissolves directly into plasma, traveling in simple form. Some of it binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells, attaching not at the oxygen-carrying sites but at different locations on the protein. Most of it, however, is carried as bicarbonate, formed when carbon dioxide reacts with water in the red blood cells. This transformation is guided by an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase, which allows the reaction to proceed quickly. In this way, carbon dioxide becomes bicarbonate, a soluble form that can travel easily in plasma. When the blood reaches the lungs, the process reverses. Bicarbonate becomes carbon dioxide again, and the gas diffuses into the air sacs to be exhaled. With every breath, the blood releases its burden, and the body is cleansed. Another major waste carried by blood is urea. When the body digests proteins, the amino acids are not always needed in their original form. The nitrogen in them must be removed, for excess nitrogen is harmful. This nitrogen is converted into urea in the liver, a process that detoxifies it and makes it safe to carry. The blood then transports urea to the kidneys, where it is filtered out and excreted in urine. The journey of urea is constant, for the body is always breaking down proteins, whether from food or from its own tissues. Without this removal, nitrogenous wastes would accumulate, poisoning the body. The bloodstream thus serves as the messenger between the liver, where toxins are processed, and the kidneys, where they are released. Maintaining purity in the inner environment, the liver itself plays a central role in waste removal, and blood is its trusted partner. Old red blood cells are broken down in the spleen, and their hemoglobin is dismantled. The iron is saved and recycled, but the rest of the molecule is converted into bilirubin, a yellow pigment. This bilirubin is carried by plasma to the liver, where it is processed and excreted into bile. From there, it travels into the digestive tract and leaves the body with waste. This process gives feces their characteristic color, a reminder that even at the smallest levels, nothing in the body is wasted without purpose. When the liver struggles to process bilirubin, as in certain diseases, the pigment can accumulate in the blood, turning the skin and eyes yellow, a condition known as jaundice. This too reminds us of how dependent the body is on the river of blood for waste removal, and how quickly balance can be disturbed when the flow is interrupted. Blood also carries the remnants of metabolism from tissues throughout the body. Lactic acid, for example, is produced when muscles work hard and oxygen runs low. In these moments, cells rely on a faster but less efficient way of producing energy, one that generates lactic acid as a byproduct. This acid cannot linger in the tissues, for it causes soreness and imbalance. The bloodstream collects it, carrying it to the liver, where it is converted back into glucose in a process known as the Cori cycle. Through this cycle, the waste of one moment becomes the fuel of another, all made possible by the transport of blood. Even heat, in a sense, is a kind of waste, an inevitable byproduct of metabolism. Every time cells release energy, some of it escapes as warmth. If left unregulated, this heat would build unevenly in the body. Blood, however, carries it away, distributing it evenly, releasing it through the skin when needed, or conserving it by redirecting flow when the environment is cold. Thus, even the simplest byproduct of life is gathered and managed by the bloodstream, turned from imbalance into equilibrium. Toxins, too, whether from outside the body or produced within, find their way into the bloodstream to be removed. Alcohol, drugs, and environmental chemicals are absorbed into plasma, carried to the liver for detoxification, and then released through the kidneys or the digestive tract. The liver acts as a filter, but blood is the courier, ensuring that these substances reach the organ that can neutralize them. This system is so efficient that we often forget how much work is being done each moment, how many molecules are being carried quietly toward elimination. The removal of waste is not simply a matter of disposal. It is a matter of balance, of homeostasis. The body is a closed system, constantly producing energy, constantly creating byproducts, and constantly needing to rid itself of what it cannot use. The blood provides the pathway for this balance, linking the producers of waste to the removers, ensuring that no byproduct lingers too long. Without this river of cleansing, the body would quickly drown in its own activity. With it, life continues smoothly, every process supported, every imbalance corrected. The importance of waste removal is seen most clearly when it falters. In kidney failure, urea and other nitrogenous wastes build up in the blood, leading to a dangerous condition called uremia. In lung disease, carbon dioxide accumulates, disturbing the body's pH and causing breathlessness. In liver failure, toxins and bilirubin are no longer processed efficiently, leading to confusion, jaundice, and imbalance. In each case, it is the disruption of blood's cleansing role that causes harm. The river of waste removal must keep flowing, for without it, the delicate balance of the body is lost. And yet, despite its critical importance, the work of waste removal is silent and unnoticed. We breathe without thinking, exhaling carbon dioxide with every breath. We urinate without considering the urea carried there by plasma. We sweat without pondering the heat carried to the surface by blood. These actions are so natural, so automatic, that we rarely reflect on them. But behind each one is the river of blood, carrying away what no longer serves, making space for renewal. To reflect on the river of waste removal is to see life as a cycle. What we take in air, food, water becomes energy, strength, and growth. What remains is carried away, released back to the world, making room for the next moment of nourishment. Blood is the medium of this cycle, the river that both delivers and cleanses, ensuring that life flows smoothly, without interruption. It is not only the river of giving, but also the river of taking away. Both sides of the same coin, both essential to the harmony of existence. Thus, in the quiet rhythm of circulation, we find not only the delivery of life, but also the removal of what no longer belongs. Carbon dioxide, urea, bilirubin, lactic acid, toxins, and heat all are gathered, carried, and released. Their presence acknowledged, but never allowed to linger. The bloodstream is both provider and purifier, both nourisher and cleanser. In its ceaseless flow, it teaches us that life is not only about receiving, but also about letting go, about balance, about the gentle art of renewal. 12. Blood and immunity in motion. The river of blood does more than carry oxygen and sweep away wastes. It also carries within it a hidden army, a vast and intricate system of defenses that protect the body against the countless threats it faces every day. This defense system is called immunity, and though much of its work is silent and unseen, it is always active, always watchful, always prepared. Blood is not only the medium through which nutrients and gases travel, it is also the medium through which security is maintained. Within its flow move the guardians of health, the messengers of alarm, and the memory keepers of past battles. Together, they form an elegant network of protection, one that adapts, remembers, and responds with precision. Immunity can be thought of as both innate and adaptive. The innate immune system is the body's first line of defense, present from birth and always ready to act. It does not recognize specific invaders, but instead responds broadly to patterns that suggest danger, such as bacterial cell walls or viral genetic material. White blood cells such as neutrophils and macrophages are the soldiers of this system, moving swiftly to engulf invaders and destroy them. Their work is direct and immediate, providing a barrier against harm, while the more specialized adaptive system is called into play. The adaptive immune system, in contrast, is slower to respond at first but far more precise. It relies on lymphocytes, particularly B cells and T cells, which recognize specific antigens, unique markers on the surface of pathogens. Once these antigens are recognized, the adaptive system tailors its response, producing antibodies that target the invader with remarkable accuracy. These antibodies float through plasma, seeking their targets, binding to them, and marking them for destruction. Some T cells destroy infected cells directly, while others coordinate the broader response, releasing signals that draw more cells into the fight. The adaptive system also has memory, so that once an invader has been encountered, the body remembers it. If the same pathogen returns, the response is faster, stronger, and often so effective that we never even notice the infection. This memory is the reason vaccines work, training the body to recognize a harmless form of a pathogen so that it is prepared if the real one appears. Blood is the pathway through which all of these immune processes occur. It is the highway that carries white blood cells from the bone marrow, where they are born, to the tissues, where they are needed. It is the medium that delivers antibodies to every corner of the body, so that no cell is left unprotected. It is the messenger that carries cytokines, small proteins, released by immune cells, to communicate with one another. These cytokines act like voices across the current, telling cells where to go, what to do, and how strong a response is needed. Through blood, the immune system is not confined to one place, but instead extends its vigilance everywhere, from the skin to the lungs to the deepest organs. The movement of immunity through blood is not random but guided. When a tissue is injured or infected, it releases chemical signals that attract immune cells. This process, called chemotaxis, ensures that the guardians are drawn precisely to where they are needed. Blood vessels at the site of injury become more permeable, allowing white blood cells to slip out of circulation and enter the tissue. They move with determination, crawling between cells, seeking out pathogens, and destroying them. All of this begins with blood, for without circulation, the immune cells would never reach their targets, and the signals would never be carried. The work of immunity within the bloodstream is constant, though we rarely notice it. When a small cut on the skin heals without infection, it is because immune cells arrive swiftly, eliminating microbes before they could spread. When a cold virus enters the nose and throat, it is met by antibodies already present in the blood and mucous membranes, limiting its hold. When we recover from an illness, it is because blood carried both the defenders and the signals that allowed the body to overcome it. Even when we feel nothing at all, immunity is in motion, patrolling silently, catching invaders before they cause harm, and remembering them for the future. The balance of immunity is as delicate as the balance of clotting or waste removal. Too weak a response, and infections take hold, overwhelming the body. Too strong a response, and the immune system can harm the very tissues it is meant to protect. This can be seen in autoimmune diseases, where the immune system mistakes the body's own cells for foreign ones and attacks them. It can also be seen in allergies, where the immune system responds with vigor to harmless substances such as pollen or food proteins. In both cases, the river of blood carries not only defenders but also the confusion of mistaken identity, showing how finely tuned immunity must be to preserve harmony. The importance of immunity in blood is also revealed in times of illness. In sepsis, for example, an infection spreads through the bloodstream itself, and the immune response becomes overwhelming, leading to widespread inflammation that can damage tissues and organs. In such moments, the very system designed to protect can turn harmful, reminding us again of the need for balance. Yet even here, the bloodstream is central, carrying not only the invaders, but also the defenders, the signals, and the treatments administered to restore health. Blood also carries the history of immunity. Within it circulate memory cells that persist for years, sometimes decades, quietly awaiting a familiar foe. These memory cells are the archive of the immune system, a living record of every pathogen the body has faced. Through them, the body gains wisdom, becoming stronger with each encounter, better able to meet the next challenge. The river of blood is thus not only a pathway of transport but also a keeper of memory, carrying within it the experiences of a lifetime. To reflect on blood and immunity in motion is to see the body as both vulnerable and resilient. We live in a world filled with unseen microbes, yet we are not constantly ill. This is because the bloodstream carries with it a defense system that is always active, always learning, always adapting. It is not a static shield, but a living, flowing one, changing as we change, responding to the challenges of each day. It is a reminder that protection is not found in walls or barriers alone, but in the constant motion of cells and signals, carried ceaselessly by the river of life. Thus, in the endless flow of circulation, blood is more than a nourisher and cleanser. It is also a guardian, a messenger, and a memory. Within it, immunity moves, quiet yet powerful, ready to act at a moment's notice. It carries not only the breath of life, but also the defense of life, ensuring that the body can endure in a world of challenges. It is immunity in motion, flowing with the river of blood, silent but steadfast, unseen but indispensable. 13. Temperature and balance. The river of blood, so often thought of as the carrier of oxygen and nutrients, has yet another responsibility that is both subtle and profound. It acts as a regulator, maintaining the delicate balance of the body's inner environment. Among its many roles, one of the most vital is the regulation of temperature. Life depends on stability, and blood ensures that the body's warmth remains within the narrow range needed for survival. It is not a task that we are often aware of, yet every moment, as we sit, rest, or move, blood is working quietly to keep us in equilibrium. It is the silent keeper of balance, the mediator between heat produced and heat lost, the one that prevents extremes and sustains the comfort of being alive. Heat is an inevitable byproduct of life. Every time a cell converts glucose into energy, a portion of that energy escapes as warmth. Muscles, in particular, generate large amounts of heat when they contract, whether during vigorous exercise or even in the quiet shiver of cold. The liver, too, is a furnace, busy with constant metabolism, producing warmth with every transformation of molecules. If all this heat remained where it was generated, the body would grow dangerously hot in some regions, while other regions cooled. But blood flows through every tissue, collecting heat where it is abundant and releasing it where it is scarce, smoothing out the differences and ensuring that the body remains even and balanced. This transport of heat is made possible by blood's constant motion. As it passes through active muscles, it absorbs their warmth, carrying it away. As it flows near the skin, it can release that warmth into the environment. The body controls this process by adjusting the diameter of blood vessels. In the heat of summer or during physical exertion, vessels near the surface of the skin widen, allowing more blood to flow through them. This widening, known as vasodilation, increases heat loss, often accompanied by the gentle release of sweat that cools the skin as it evaporates. In the chill of winter, the opposite occurs. Vessels near the surface narrow in a process called vasoconstriction, reducing blood flow to the skin and conserving heat within the deeper core of the body. In this way, blood acts like a thermostat, adjusting distribution to maintain balance, keeping us warm when the world is cold and cool when the world is hot. But blood does more than regulate temperature. It also maintains chemical balance, keeping the body's internal environment stable despite constant change. One of its key roles is the regulation of pH, the measure of acidity and alkalinity. The cells of the body function best at a pH around 7.4, slightly alkaline. If the pH shifts too far in either direction, enzymes falter, reactions slow, and life itself becomes threatened. Blood prevents this by carrying buffers molecules that can absorb excess acids or bases. Chief among these is the bicarbonate buffer system, which balances carbon dioxide, bicarbonate, and hydrogen ions. When the body produces more acid, as during intense exercise, bicarbonate absorbs it, preventing a dangerous fall in pH. When alkalinity rises, the system shifts in the opposite direction, releasing hydrogen ions to restore balance. It is a quiet, chemical dance, constant and precise, that allows the inner environment to remain steady, even as the outer world changes. Blood also regulates fluid balance. The plasma, with its proteins, such as albumin, holds water within the vessels by exerting osmotic pressure. This prevents too much fluid from leaking into tissues, which would cause swelling, or from being lost altogether, which would deplete circulation. The kidneys, in turn, work with blood to adjust water and salt levels, fine-tuning the balance with every beat of the heart. When fluid is plentiful, the kidneys excrete more, reducing the burden. When fluid is scarce, they conserve water, guided by hormones that travel through the bloodstream. In this way, blood is both a carrier and a communicator, linking the needs of the body to the systems that regulate them. The balance maintained by blood extends to the distribution of nutrients and wastes. As described before, it delivers glucose, amino acids, and lipids, while carrying away carbon dioxide, urea, and lactic acid. But beyond simple transport, blood ensures that these substances remain within safe ranges. Too much glucose, and the body suffers. Too little, and the brain is deprived of fuel. Hormones such as insulin and glucagon, carried by blood, adjust the levels, ensuring that balance is restored. Too much carbon dioxide, and blood becomes acidic. Too little, and balance is lost in the other direction. By carrying both the substances and the signals that regulate them, blood acts as both the messenger and the moderator of balance. The significance of this role becomes clear when balance is disrupted. In fevers, the regulation of temperature shifts upward, and the body grows hotter, not because blood has failed, but because it has been commanded to conserve heat in the battle against infection. In dehydration, plasma volume decreases, and the careful balance of fluids falters, leading to dizziness, fatigue, and strain on the heart. In acidosis or alkalosis, when pH moves too far from its ideal, blood struggles to buffer the imbalance, and symptoms spread quickly through the body. These conditions remind us that life depends on constancy, and constancy depends on blood's ability to mediate, regulate, and balance. Yet most of the time, we do not notice these efforts. We walk through summer heat, and blood keeps us from overheating. We rest in winter cold, and blood keeps us warm within. We eat, breathe, move, and sleep, and blood keeps our chemistry within the narrow ranges that life requires. This constancy allows us to focus on living rather than survival, to move through the world without awareness of the countless adjustments happening within. To reflect on blood's role in temperature and balance is to see the body not as a collection of parts, but as a system, united by the river that flows through it. Blood is not only a transporter of goods, but also a regulator of harmony, smoothing out differences, correcting imbalances, ensuring stability. It is the quiet mediator between change and constancy, between inner needs and outer conditions. Thus, in the endless flow of circulation, blood serves not only as the river of life, but also as its thermostat, its buffer, and its balance. It absorbs heat and releases it, absorbs acids and neutralizes them, holds water and distributes it, carries signals and enforces equilibrium. It is the silent hand that keeps us steady, the unseen guardian of constancy. Without it, the body would swing wildly with every change in the environment. With it, life remains calm, steady, and sustained, a delicate balance kept by the gentle flow of blood. 14. Disorders of the blood. The river of blood flows steadily through the body, carrying oxygen, delivering nutrients, maintaining balance, and protecting against harm. It is a system so constant and reliable that we often forget it is there. Yet, like any delicate system, it can falter. The disorders of the blood are not interruptions of its existence, but disturbances of its harmony, subtle or severe imbalances that reveal just how much depends on its proper function. When blood is in balance, life is quiet and strong. When it is disrupted, the effects ripple outward, touching every part of the body. To reflect on these disorders is not to dwell on fear, but to appreciate the fragile perfection of the system, to see how each element, red cells, white cells, platelets, plasma, must play its part in harmony. One of the most common disturbances is anemia, a condition in which the blood does not carry enough oxygen. Anemia can arise in many ways. Sometimes there are too few red blood cells, as in blood loss or certain bone marrow conditions. Sometimes the cells are present but lack sufficient hemoglobin, as in iron deficiency anemia. Sometimes the hemoglobin itself is abnormal, as in sickle cell disease or thalassemia. The result in each case is the same. Oxygen delivery is reduced, and the body feels weak and fatigued. Muscles tire quickly, concentration falters, and even small efforts seem overwhelming. Though anemia can take many forms, its essence is a reminder of how much depends on the red cell's quiet work. When the carriers of breath falter, every tissue feels the strain. Sickle cell disease is a particularly striking example of how a small change can create great consequences. In this condition, a mutation in the gene for hemoglobin causes the red blood cells to assume a rigid, crescent shape under certain conditions. Instead of moving smoothly through capillaries, these cells can become stuck, blocking blood flow and causing pain, organ damage, and increased risk of infection. Their lifespan is also shorter than that of normal red cells, leading to chronic anemia. Yet even in this challenge, there is resilience. The same mutation that causes sickle cell disease also offers protection against malaria, a disease once widespread in regions where the mutation is most common. It is a reminder that the story of blood is intertwined with the story of survival, that disorders can also reveal adaptations shaped by history. Thalassemia, another disorder of hemoglobin, results from a defect in the production of its globin chains. Depending on which chain is affected, the condition may range from mild to severe. In the more serious forms, red blood cells are fragile and easily destroyed, leading to chronic anemia that requires ongoing transfusions. This condition, like sickle cell disease, is most common in regions once plagued by malaria, further illustrating the complex interplay between blood, disease, and evolution. Beyond red cells, disorders can also affect clotting. Hemophilia is one of the most well-known. In this genetic condition, one of the clotting factors is missing or defective, leaving the cascade incomplete. Without the full sequence, the blood cannot form strong clots, and bleeding can continue longer than normal. Even small injuries may require careful management, and internal bleeding into joints or muscles can cause pain and damage. Though modern treatments have greatly improved the outlook for those with hemophilia, the condition remains a profound reminder of how much depends on the clotting cascade, how each factor is an essential note in the symphony of healing. The opposite problem, excessive clotting, can also occur. In conditions such as deep vein thrombosis, clots form within veins without injury. These clots may block blood flow, causing pain and swelling, and they carry the risk of breaking free and traveling to the lungs, where they can cause life-threatening complications. Disorders of clotting can also contribute to strokes and heart attacks, where clots obstruct blood flow in arteries, depriving tissues of oxygen. These conditions remind us that clotting must be balanced. Too little, and we bleed. Too much, and we block. The harmony lies in the middle, where platelets and clotting factors act precisely. No more and no less than needed. Leukemia represents another disruption, this time of white blood cells. In leukemia, the bone marrow produces large numbers of abnormal white cells that do not function properly. These cells crowd out the normal production of red cells, platelets, and healthy white cells, leading to anemia, increased risk of bleeding, and vulnerability to infection. Though the blood may appear full of cells, their function is lost, and the balance of the river is broken. Treatments for leukemia, from chemotherapy to stem cell transplants, aim to restore this balance by eliminating the abnormal cells and allowing healthy ones to return. The struggle against leukemia is one of the clearest examples of how essential the guardians of the blood are, and how devastating their absence can be. Other disorders affect the plasma itself. In liver disease, proteins such as albumin and clotting factors may be reduced, leading to swelling, bleeding, and imbalance. In kidney disease, wastes such as urea accumulate in plasma, overwhelming the body's ability to maintain purity. In certain immune conditions, abnormal antibodies may fill the plasma, causing harm to nerves, kidneys, or blood vessels. Even the fluid portion of blood is vulnerable, and its disruptions ripple outward to every system. There are also conditions where blood itself becomes too abundant. In polycythemia vera, the bone marrow produces excessive red blood cells, thickening the blood and increasing the risk of clotting. In leukocytosis, high numbers of white cells appear in response to infection, or sometimes without clear cause. These conditions demonstrate that even abundance can be a form of imbalance. The river of blood must flow smoothly, not too thin and not too thick, not too empty and not too full. When we reflect on disorders of the blood, we are reminded of how integrated the system is with every part of the body. Fatigue, weakness, pain, infection, swelling, bleeding, and blockage. Each symptom is a ripple spreading from the river's disruption. Yet within this fragility there is also resilience. Modern medicine has found ways to support the blood, to transfuse red cells, to donate platelets, to provide clotting factors, to adjust immune responses, to transplant bone marrow. These interventions are themselves a testament to the central role of blood, for when it falters, the body cannot endure without help. And yet, despite these challenges, the majority of the time, the river flows quietly, steadily, harmoniously. Disorders of the blood remind us not of weakness alone, but of the strength that comes from balance. They show us how intricate the system is, how every element must play its part, and how remarkable it is that most of the time it works without error. Thus, to think of disorders of the blood is not to dwell in fear, but to deepen our respect for every condition that disrupts it. There are countless days when the river flows smoothly, unseen, unbroken, sustaining life with quiet constancy. The disorders remind us of fragility, but they also highlight the wonder of normalcy, the miracle of balance that carries us from breath to breath, heartbeat to heartbeat, through the endless journey of life. 15. Ancient beliefs and practices. Long before science revealed the microscopic wonders of red cells, white cells, platelets, and plasma, blood was already understood as something sacred, mysterious, and powerful. For ancient peoples, blood was not simply a fluid, but the very essence of life itself, a substance that connected the body to the soul, the individual to the divine, and humanity to the natural world. It was observed that when blood flowed from the body, life weakened, and when too much was lost, life ended. From this simple but profound observation grew an entire landscape of beliefs and practices, some symbolic, some ritualistic, and some practical attempts at healing. To step back into these ancient views is to see blood through the eyes of wonder, mystery, and reverence, to understand how deeply it has shaped human thought across cultures and time. In ancient Egypt, blood was seen as the vital force of existence, a sacred fluid tied to the gods and to creation itself. Medical papyri from Egypt, some dating back more than 3,000 years, describe illnesses and treatments with remarkable insight, though the true nature of blood was not understood in scientific terms. They believed that the heart and vessels carried not only blood but also air, water, and even spirits that nourished the body. The connection between the heart and blood was already recognized, though framed in mystical terms. In rituals, blood also carried symbolic meaning. The spilling of blood could be an offering, a sacrifice that bound the human world to the divine, an act of both reverence and renewal. Among the ancient Greeks, blood became central to one of the most influential theories of health, the doctrine of the four humors. According to this view, the body contained four vital fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and health depended on their balance. Blood was associated with vitality, warmth, and vigor. A person thought to have an excess of blood was described as sanguine, cheerful, energetic, and passionate. When imbalance occurred, it was believed that health could be restored through practices such as bloodletting, which aimed to reduce excess blood and restore equilibrium. Though the theory of humors was not scientifically correct, it shaped medicine for centuries, guiding treatments across the ancient and medieval world. The Romans inherited much of Greek medical philosophy and carried it into their vast empire. Physicians such as Galen expanded upon the humoral theory, and their writings became authoritative for more than a millennium. Bloodletting became one of the most common treatments for a wide variety of ailments, from fevers to headaches, from infections to melancholy. To us, it may seem curious or even harmful, but within the framework of humoral balance, it was seen as logical and necessary. The sight of blood leaving the body was not only a medical intervention but also a symbolic release of what was thought to be harmful excess. The practice endured well into the modern era, a testament to the power of ancient beliefs to shape medicine long after their origins. In other cultures, blood was tied not only to health but also to ritual and identity. Among the Maya and Aztec civilizations of Mesoamerica, blood held immense religious significance. It was believed to be the ultimate offering to the gods, the substance most sacred and most powerful. Ritual bloodletting was performed by rulers and priests, who would pierce their tongues, ears, or skin to draw blood as an act of devotion. In larger ceremonies, the sacrifice of human blood was offered to sustain the gods and ensure the continuation of the world. These practices, though foreign to modern eyes, reflected a worldview in which blood was the bridge between the human and the divine, the offering that maintained cosmic order. In ancient China, blood was understood within the broader framework of qi, the vital energy that flows through the body along meridians. Blood was seen as one form of this energy, providing nourishment and balance. Traditional Chinese medicine described the circulation of blood not in anatomical terms but in energetic ones, linking it to harmony and flow. When blood and qi were in balance, health flourished. When they were blocked or depleted, illness arose. Treatments such as acupuncture, herbs, and dietary adjustments sought to restore this balance, ensuring that the vital river flowed freely through the body. Though different in concept from Western theories, this view also placed blood at the center of health and harmony. Religious traditions across the world also wove blood into their practices and symbols. In the Hebrew Bible, blood was described as the life force, sacred to God, and its spilling was regulated with great care. Sacrifices involving blood were acts of worship and atonement, deeply significant in ritual life. In Christianity, blood took on profound spiritual meaning through the imagery of sacrifice and redemption, with the blood of Christ becoming a symbol of salvation and eternal life. In Islam, blood is considered ritually impure when spilled, yet it is also honored in the sacrifice of animals during religious observances. Across these traditions, blood was never seen as a mere fluid, but as a sacred element, embodying life, sacrifice, and the deepest spiritual truths. Even in folklore and mythology, blood has long carried symbolic weight. It has been associated with courage, kinship, and transformation. The phrase "blood is thicker than water" reflects the idea of familial bonds carried through shared blood. In legends, blood was sometimes seen as a source of magical power, conferring strength or vitality upon those who consumed it. Vampiric myths, stretching across cultures from Europe to Asia, drew upon this imagery, reflecting both fascination and fear of blood's association with life and death. Such stories, though imaginative, speak to humanity's enduring recognition of blood as more than a physical substance. Looking back at these ancient beliefs and practices, we see not error alone, but also a profound respect for the essence of life. Though the scientific details were unknown, people observed that blood was vital, that its loss meant weakness, and that its presence meant strength. They interpreted these truths through the lenses of culture, religion, and philosophy, weaving them into systems that gave meaning to health, illness, and the mysteries of existence. Even when practices such as bloodletting or ritual sacrifice seem strange to us, they reflect a deep human attempt to understand and to honor the river of life. Today, we know that blood is composed of cells, proteins, and plasma, that it flows in vessels driven by the heart, that its oxygen comes from hemoglobin, and that its balance is maintained by countless systems of regulation. Yet the ancient views remind us that knowledge is not only about detail, but also about meaning. For those who came before, blood was life itself, sacred and mysterious, something to be revered, offered, balanced, or honored, and in many ways, that truth remains. Even with all our scientific knowledge, we still recognize that blood carries something profound, something more than the sum of its parts. Thus, to reflect on ancient beliefs and practices is to see the river of blood through another lens, not as plasma and cells, but as spirit and symbol. It is to recognize that humanity has always felt its power, always seen in its flow, a connection to life, death, and the eternal. In every drop, ancient people saw a world of meaning, and in that, they were not wrong. Blood is life, whether understood through myth, religion, or science. The language changes, the explanations evolve, but the reverence remains. 16. The Age of Discovery. The story of blood entered a new chapter with the rise of scientific inquiry in Europe during the Renaissance and early modern period. For centuries, humoral theory and ancient beliefs had guided medicine, shaping treatments and explanations of disease. But in the 16th and 17th centuries, curiosity deepened and methods sharpened. Observers began to look more closely at the body, to question long-held doctrines, and to test ideas through experiment. This age of discovery did not replace reverence for blood, but it shifted the understanding from symbolic and philosophical ideas toward anatomical and physiological truths. What had once been seen only as essence and mystery began to be revealed as a system of circulation, transport, and balance. It was in this age that the river of life began to be mapped with clarity. One of the earliest breakthroughs came with the development of microscopy. Before the 17th century, the small and hidden structures of the body could only be imagined. But with the invention of the microscope, the unseen became visible. Scientists such as Marcello Malpighi placed thin tissues under lenses and described the presence of tiny vessels, later known as capillaries. Malpighi's observations revealed the missing link in circulation, showing how blood passed from arteries to veins through a network of delicate channels. This discovery confirmed what had been suspected but not proven, that blood truly moved in a continuous circuit, a closed loop, rather than an open ebb and flow. The full concept of circulation, however, is most closely tied to the work of William Harvey. In 1628, Harvey published his treatise, De Motu Cordis, on the motion of the heart and blood. In this work, he described the heart as a pump that drove blood through the body in a circular motion. He argued, through careful observation and calculation, that the amount of blood pumped by the heart was far too great to be consumed by tissues, as the old humoral theory suggested. Instead, it must be circulating. Harvey's work was revolutionary, not only for its conclusions but also for its method. He used measurement, reasoning, and demonstration, showing that medicine could be built upon evidence rather than tradition alone. The idea of circulation, so central to our understanding today, was once a radical discovery that reshaped how physicians and scientists thought of the body. Following Harvey, others built upon his insights. Malpighi's discovery of capillaries confirmed the physical reality of Harvey's theory. Antony van Leeuwenhoek, using his finely crafted microscopes, described red blood cells for the first time in the late 17th century. Noting their round, flattened shape, he could not yet see their inner structure, but he marveled at their abundance and uniformity. With each observation, blood became less mysterious and more tangible, its components revealed through lenses and light. The river of life was still sacred, but now it was also a field of study, a system to be measured, described, and eventually understood. The age of discovery also brought new practices in medicine. Bloodletting, still rooted in humoral theory, began to be questioned as understanding of circulation grew. If blood moved in a circuit, replenished and reused, then draining it away seemed less logical as a universal cure. Still, old practices lingered, for beliefs are slow to fade. Physicians continued to balance tradition with discovery, sometimes clinging to the old while cautiously embracing the new. In this way, medicine stood with one foot in the past and one in the future, a bridge between symbolic blood and scientific blood. The 17th and 18th centuries also saw the first attempts at blood transfusion. In 1665, Richard Lower in England performed the first successful animal-to-animal transfusions, demonstrating that blood could be transferred from one creature to another. Soon after, experiments were attempted on humans, with mixed and often dangerous results. Without knowledge of blood types or compatibility, transfusions were unpredictable, sometimes saving lives but often causing harm. Though the practice was eventually abandoned for a time, these early attempts planted the seeds for future discoveries. They reflected the growing recognition that blood was not only vital but potentially shareable, a substance that could move from one body to another, carrying life with it. During this period, the symbolism of blood remained strong even as science advanced. In art, literature, and religion, blood continued to represent life, sacrifice, and spirit. Yet, alongside this symbolism, a more practical knowledge grew. Physicians learned to measure pulse, to observe circulation, to use microscopes to see cells. The mystery of blood was not diminished by these discoveries. Rather, it was deepened. For every answer found, new questions arose. What were the exact functions of red and white cells? What made blood clot? How did it carry nourishment? These questions would fuel inquiry for centuries to come. The age of discovery also reshaped the way people thought about the human body as a whole. Before Harvey, the body was often seen as a vessel, filled with fluids that ebbed and flowed, sometimes in disorder, sometimes in balance. After Harvey, the body was increasingly understood as a system, with parts working together in rhythm and circulation. The heart became not merely a symbol of emotion, but an engine of life. Blood became not only essence but movement, a flowing river that never stood still. The shift was profound, and though it took time to spread, it marked the beginning of modern physiology. What is most striking about this period is the combination of reverence and curiosity. Blood was still regarded with awe, still tied to sacred and cultural meanings, yet it was also examined with tools, calculations, and experiments. This blend of wonder and inquiry allowed science to grow without severing its connection to the sense of mystery. Even Harvey, in his careful studies, described the heart's motion with admiration, noting its precision and constancy. For him, discovery was not a loss of wonder, but an expansion of it, a chance to marvel at the hidden workings of life. Thus, the age of discovery was not an end, but a beginning. It was the moment when blood stepped out of the realm of myth and into the realm of science, when the river of life was first mapped with accuracy. Yet even as it became subject to measurement and proof, it retained its symbolic power. The discoveries of Harvey, Malpighi, and Leeuwenhoek did not diminish the meaning of blood. They added new layers to it, blending the sacred with the scientific, the symbolic with the measurable. Blood remained life itself, but now it was also a system of circulation, a network of vessels, a flow of cells and plasma. To reflect on this period is to see humanity at a turning point, standing between past and future. Ancient beliefs had carried meaning but not detail. Modern science would bring detail but sometimes forget meaning. In the age of discovery, both existed side by side. The awe of blood as sacred life and the curiosity of blood as physical system. It was a time of transition, of exploration, of profound change. The river of blood had always been present, but now, for the first time, its flow was being truly understood. 17. Modern medicine and blood. With the steady advance of science, the 19th and 20th centuries became the era in which blood stepped fully into the realm of modern medicine. What was once mysterious, symbolic, and only partially understood became the subject of precise study, leading to practices that could save lives on an unprecedented scale. The river of life was no longer only a poetic image. It was now a system that could be measured, analyzed, and most importantly, supported when it faltered. In this modern age, blood became both the object of scientific knowledge and the medium of healing itself, a bridge between human vulnerability and medical possibility. One of the most transformative discoveries was that of blood groups, first described at the dawn of the 20th century by Karl Landsteiner. Until then, transfusions had been attempted with uncertain outcomes. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they ended in tragedy, and no one understood why. Landsteiner discovered that blood contains different antigens on the surface of red cells, and that these differences explain why some transfusions succeed while others fail. His work revealed the ABO system, dividing blood into types A, B, AB, and O. Later, the Rh factor was discovered, adding another crucial distinction. These discoveries turned transfusion from a dangerous gamble into a reliable treatment. For this insight, Landsteiner received the Nobel Prize. But more importantly, millions of lives were saved in the decades that followed. With the knowledge of blood types came the rise of blood banks. During the First and Second World Wars, the need for safe transfusion became urgent. Systems were developed to collect, store, and transport blood so that soldiers and civilians alike could receive it when needed. The discovery that blood could be preserved with anticoagulants and refrigeration made this possible. What had once been a gift exchanged directly from donor to patient became a resource that could be shared widely. Blood banks soon spread across the world, creating a new form of community where individuals could give a part of their own life to sustain another. This practice, born of war, became one of the enduring symbols of compassion and peace. Modern medicine also brought deeper understanding of the components of blood. Microscopy and chemical analysis revealed the structure and function of red cells, white cells, platelets, and plasma in detail. Hemoglobin was studied as the carrier of oxygen, its binding and release measured with precision. The mechanisms of clotting were unraveled, the cascade of factors identified step by step. White blood cells were classified into their many types, their roles in immunity described, their functions mapped. Plasma was found to carry not only nutrients and wastes, but also proteins essential for balance, transport, and defense. What had once been seen as a single fluid was revealed as a complex and dynamic mixture, each element playing its role in harmony. This knowledge gave rise to therapies that were once unimaginable. Blood transfusion became routine in surgery, childbirth, trauma care, and chronic illness. Plasma could be separated into its components, providing clotting factors for hemophilia, immunoglobulins for immune disorders, and albumin for fluid balance. Platelets could be transfused to support patients undergoing chemotherapy or suffering from bleeding disorders. The river of blood was no longer only natural. It was something medicine could supplement, restore, and even shape. Each part could be given where it was most needed, targeted to sustain life. The 20th century also saw the rise of hematology as a field of medicine. Specialists focused on the study of blood and its disorders, diagnosing conditions such as leukemia, anemia, hemophilia, and clotting abnormalities with increasing accuracy. Techniques such as bone marrow biopsy, blood smears, and later molecular analysis allowed physicians to see the origins of disease at the cellular and genetic level. Treatment moved from guesswork to precision, guided by evidence and supported by the growing knowledge of biology. The ability to examine blood at the molecular level also brought insight into its hidden language. Hormones, electrolytes, enzymes, and markers of disease could all be measured in plasma, turning blood into a window on the state of the body. A small vial of blood could reveal the presence of infection, the function of organs, the balance of nutrients, and even the risk of future illness. Modern medicine came to rely on blood testing as one of its most powerful tools, a quiet form of listening to the body's inner signals. What had once been seen only as fluid became a record of life's processes, written in molecules and cells. Advances in genetics deepened this understanding even further. The genes that guide the production of hemoglobin were identified, explaining conditions such as sickle cell disease and thalassemia. The genes that regulate clotting were mapped, revealing the causes of hemophilia and other disorders. Leukemia and lymphoma were studied at the level of DNA mutations, leading to treatments targeted at the specific errors driving disease. Blood was no longer just a carrier of life. It was a carrier of information, holding within it the secrets of ancestry, health, and identity. Modern medicine also turned its attention to blood substitutes and artificial supports. Efforts were made to develop fluids that could carry oxygen in place of red cells, to create synthetic plasma expanders that could maintain circulation, and to engineer platelets and clotting factors in laboratories. While no full substitute has yet matched the richness of natural blood, these efforts reflect the growing recognition of blood's central role and the desire to support it when donation is not possible. The search continues, driven by the need to sustain life in emergencies, on battlefields, and in places where blood supply is scarce. The modern era also brought ethical and cultural changes to the way blood is viewed. The act of donating blood became a symbol of generosity, a way for individuals to give part of themselves to others. Campaigns encouraged blood donation as a civic duty and a humanitarian act. Yet questions of access, safety, and fairness also arose. The emergence of diseases such as HIV in the late 20th century brought new challenges, leading to rigorous screening of blood supplies and renewed awareness of the risks and responsibilities involved. Blood remained not only a medical substance, but also a symbol of trust, community, and shared humanity. In hospitals around the world today, blood is used in countless ways. It sustains patients through surgery, rescues them after trauma, supports them in cancer treatment, and restores them in childbirth. It is tested daily to monitor health, to guide therapies, to diagnose conditions before they become severe. It flows not only within our bodies, but through the veins of modern medicine itself, connecting patients, donors, doctors, and scientists in a web of care. The river of blood has always been the river of life, but in this age it is also the river of healing, flowing through hospitals, clinics, and laboratories with the same quiet constancy it has within us. To reflect on modern medicine and blood is to see both progress and humility. We have learned much: the types, the factors, the cells. We can store, test, transfuse, and analyze. We can treat many disorders that once seemed untouchable. Yet for all this, the river of blood remains beyond full imitation. No artificial fluid has yet matched its complexity, its adaptability, its quiet perfection. Blood reminds us that even in an age of discovery and innovation, there are still mysteries, still wonders, still gifts of nature that cannot be replaced. Thus, modern medicine has not diminished the meaning of blood, it has deepened it. Blood is now both symbol and science, both ancient reverence and modern knowledge. It flows within us and between us, connecting life to life, past to present, mystery to discovery. In its cells and plasma, we see the progress of centuries, the fruit of human curiosity and compassion. In its flow, we still see the essence of life itself, unchanged, eternal, carrying us forward with every heartbeat. 18. Blood in culture and symbolism. Blood, while deeply understood today in scientific terms, has always carried meanings that go far beyond biology. Across cultures and centuries, it has been revered, feared, celebrated, and ritualized. It has been seen as a symbol of kinship, sacrifice, vitality, courage, and even destiny. Where modern medicine describes blood as cells, plasma, and proteins, culture describes it as spirit, as bond, as the thread that ties human beings together. To explore blood in culture and symbolism is to see how humanity has always sensed its power, weaving it into stories, rituals, and traditions that reveal both awe and reverence. In nearly every society, blood has symbolized life itself. The observation that the loss of blood leads to weakness and death gave rise to the belief that blood is the seat of vitality. In ancient myths, gods and heroes were often described as possessing special blood, infused with divinity or strength. Some cultures imagined that consuming the blood of an enemy or animal might transfer its power, vitality, or courage to the one who drank it. While these practices were rare and often ritualistic, they reveal the deep association between blood and the essence of life. To hold blood was to hold spirit, and to spill blood was to release it back to the universe. Blood has also long represented kinship and family ties. The phrase, "blood is thicker than water," echoes an ancient recognition that shared blood signifies connection. In many cultures, bloodlines define inheritance, identity, and belonging. To be of the same blood is to be bound by ties deeper than choice. In some traditions, blood pacts were made between individuals, symbolically mingling drops of blood to create bonds as strong as those of family. These rituals, sometimes performed by warriors, friends, or allies, made blood a covenant, an eternal promise, sealed by the very essence of life. Sacrifice is another powerful theme in the symbolism of blood. From ancient Mesopotamia to the temples of Mesoamerica, from the altars of Greece to the rituals of Israel, blood was offered to the divine. It was seen as the most precious gift, the substance closest to life itself, capable of honoring gods, seeking forgiveness, or ensuring fertility and prosperity. In some traditions, the blood of animals was spilled in ritual sacrifice, the act believed to renew harmony between humans and the divine. In others, the blood of humans was offered in times of crisis or in acts of devotion. To modern minds, these practices may seem distant, but they reveal the deep reverence ancient cultures held for blood as a sacred link between the human and the eternal. In Christianity, blood became a central symbol through the story of Christ. The blood of Christ, shed on the cross, came to represent redemption, sacrifice, and eternal life. In the sacrament of communion, wine is taken as the blood of Christ, a ritual that unites believers with the sacrifice and with one another. This imagery has carried immense spiritual weight for centuries, shaping theology, art, and devotion. Blood here is no longer only physical but deeply spiritual, a symbol of salvation and love. It is revered not for its biological properties but for its meaning as life given for others. Other faiths also honor blood in unique ways. In Judaism, blood is considered sacred and belongs to God, leading to dietary laws that prohibit the consumption of blood. In Islam, blood is seen as ritually impure when spilled, yet its role in sacrifice is acknowledged during festivals such as Eid al-Adha, where animals are slaughtered in remembrance of Abraham's devotion to God. In Hindu traditions, blood has appeared in rituals of goddess worship, where sacrifice once played a role in certain ceremonies, though symbolic offerings have often replaced actual blood. These practices, diverse though they are, reveal a common thread. Blood is never neutral, never ordinary. It is always meaningful, always powerful, always a point of connection between humanity and the divine. Blood has also symbolized courage and sacrifice in secular culture. To shed blood for one's homeland or people has long been a metaphor for bravery and loyalty. Soldiers who die in battle are said to have given their blood for freedom, their sacrifice woven into the memory of nations. Flags, anthems, and monuments often reference blood as the price of independence or peace. Even outside of war, blood has come to symbolize deep commitment, the willingness to give everything for a cause or for others. This symbolic use transforms blood from a personal fluid into a collective emblem, a marker of shared struggle and identity. In folklore and literature, blood often represents transformation and the boundary between life and death. Myths of vampires, from Eastern Europe to Asia, describe creatures that live by consuming blood, drawing upon its association with vitality. To lose blood in these stories is to lose life itself, while to consume it is to gain strength or immortality. Tales of magical pacts sealed with blood, of heroes marked by bloodlines, of villains cursed by blood, all reveal the way cultures have used blood as a metaphor for destiny, power, and change. In poetry and prose, blood becomes the language of passion, anger, love, and kinship, an image as versatile as it is enduring. Even in modern times, blood carries symbolic weight in everyday language. We speak of bad blood to describe conflict, of new blood to describe fresh energy, of blood ties to describe family. Political revolutions are often described as bloody, a reminder of the sacrifices that mark change. Sports teams speak of leaving blood, sweat, and tears on the field, capturing the idea of giving one's whole being to the effort. These expressions show that even when we no longer see blood as magical or sacred in the ancient sense, we still use it as a metaphor for life, effort, and connection. Blood also appears in cultural taboos and superstitions. In many societies, the sight of blood has been linked with danger, impurity, or omen. Menstrual blood, in particular, has been surrounded by taboos, sometimes seen as powerful, sometimes as unclean. These views have shaped rituals of seclusion, avoidance, or reverence, depending on culture and time. The ambivalence toward blood, at once sacred and dangerous, reflects its dual nature as both giver of life and herald of injury. It is never neutral, always commanding attention, always demanding meaning. To reflect on blood in culture and symbolism is to recognize that science and spirituality, medicine and mythology coexist in the human relationship with this fluid. On one hand, we know blood as cells and plasma, oxygen and nutrients, clotting and immunity. On the other, we still sense its deeper meaning, its symbolic power to represent family, courage, sacrifice, and connection. These layers of meaning enrich our understanding, reminding us that blood is not only the subject of science but also of story, not only the river of biology but also the river of culture. Thus, blood flows not only through our veins but also through our traditions, our languages, our myths, and our rituals. It unites the biological with the symbolic, the individual with the collective, the earthly with the divine. It is life made visible, meaning made tangible, a river that carries not only oxygen but also the weight of human imagination. In every drop of blood, cultures have seen not only cells but spirit, not only survival but significance. The river of life is also the river of meaning, flowing endlessly through the human story. 19. The future of blood science. As we look to the future, the river of blood continues to inspire curiosity, innovation, and discovery. For centuries, humanity has moved from reverence to observation, from speculation to science, and from mystery to understanding. Yet even now, with so much known about red cells, white cells, platelets, and plasma, there remain countless questions to answer and endless horizons to explore. The study of blood stands at the intersection of biology, medicine, and technology, and the future promises new ways to understand, manipulate, and even transform this vital fluid. It is a story not only of science but also of hope, for every advance in blood science holds the potential to save lives, to ease suffering, and to reveal more of the body's hidden wisdom. One of the most active areas of research is the creation of artificial blood substitutes. Natural blood has always been essential for transfusion, but dependence on donors presents challenges. Supplies can run low in times of crisis, and storage has limits. Artificial blood aims to bridge these gaps by providing fluids that can carry oxygen safely and efficiently. Researchers are experimenting with hemoglobin-based oxygen carriers, designed to mimic the red cell's ability to bind and release oxygen, and perfluorocarbon emulsions, synthetic molecules that dissolve large amounts of gases. While no substitute has yet fully matched the complexity of human blood, progress continues steadily. In the future, such substitutes may provide immediate support in emergencies, on battlefields, or in remote areas where donor blood is scarce, ensuring that the river of life can be restored even when natural sources are limited. Another frontier lies in the field of stem cells and regenerative medicine. Scientists are learning how to coax stem cells into producing red blood cells, platelets, and even immune cells in the laboratory. If perfected, this could provide an endless supply of blood components, tailored to each patient, reducing the need for donation and eliminating the risk of incompatibility. Personalized transfusions, grown from a patient's own cells, could bypass immune rejection, creating a future where the river of blood can be replenished from within. This vision, still in development, reflects the growing ability of science to harness the body's own processes, turning biology into medicine with precision and care. Genetic therapies also hold promise for blood disorders that once seemed insurmountable. Conditions such as sickle cell disease and thalassemia, caused by mutations in hemoglobin genes, may be curable through techniques that repair or replace faulty DNA. Already, patients have been treated successfully with therapies that edit their genes, restoring normal blood function and freeing them from the symptoms of disease. As these therapies advance, the future may hold cures for disorders long endured by generations, transforming the lives of those whose blood carries hidden burdens. The river of life, once thought unchangeable, may be guided into new courses through the quiet editing of its genetic map. Immunology, too, is entering a new age. The immune system, carried by white blood cells through the bloodstream, is being studied with unprecedented depth. Scientists are designing immune therapies that harness the body's defenses to fight cancer, training white blood cells to recognize and attack tumors. Treatments such as CAR T therapy, where a patient's T cells are modified and returned to the bloodstream, are already showing remarkable results. The future may bring a world where blood itself becomes the medicine, carrying not only natural guardians but also engineered defenders designed to seek out and destroy disease. This blending of immunity and technology points to a future where the bloodstream is not only a carrier of health but also a battlefield of healing. Plasma, too, is gaining new attention. During the global challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, convalescent plasma taken from patients who had recovered and carried antibodies was explored as a treatment. Though results varied, the idea reflected the future potential of plasma as a source of therapies, filled with antibodies, proteins, and molecules that can be harnessed for healing. In the years ahead, plasma may become a treasure trove of medicines, its components separated, refined, and directed against disease. Already, therapies derived from plasma support patients with immune deficiencies, clotting disorders, and other conditions. The refinement of these treatments will only grow more precise as science advances. The future of blood science also includes the rise of precision diagnostics. Already, a small sample of blood can reveal astonishing details: cholesterol levels, hormone balances, markers of infection, even genetic mutations. As technology improves, blood tests may detect cancers at their earliest stages, reveal metabolic changes before illness appears, or even provide continuous monitoring through wearable devices. A drop of blood may become a complete map of health, offering guidance for prevention, prediction, and personalized treatment. The river of blood is not only a carrier of life, but also a mirror of it, reflecting the state of the body in every molecule. Future diagnostics will allow us to read this mirror more clearly than ever before. Nanotechnology may also play a role in the future of blood. Tiny particles, smaller than cells, are being designed to travel through the bloodstream, delivering drugs directly to tumors, clotting sites, or areas of inflammation. These nanoparticles could act like couriers, carrying medicines exactly where they are needed, reducing side effects and increasing effectiveness. Some may even act as artificial platelets, rushing to wounds to help seal them, or as miniature oxygen carriers, supplementing red cells in times of stress. The merging of technology with biology opens the possibility of a river of blood enhanced by innovations, flowing not only with natural components, but also with engineered helpers. The exploration of space is another area where the future of blood science will be tested. In the microgravity of space, blood behaves differently. Fluid shifts upward, red cells decrease in number, and immunity changes. As humanity reaches toward long journeys and distant planets, supporting the river of blood will be essential. Artificial gravity, new transfusion methods, and engineered substitutes may become vital tools. The future of blood science is not confined to Earth but will travel with us, ensuring that wherever life flows, the river of blood flows with it. Amid all these possibilities, there remains the enduring human act of blood donation. Even as technology advances, the willingness of one person to give a part of themselves for another remains central. The future may bring artificial substitutes, stem cell-derived components, and engineered therapies, but the gift of blood will always carry symbolic meaning. It is an act of connection, a reminder that the river of life is shared, that one person's strength can sustain another's. In this way, even as blood science becomes more complex, its essence remains simple. Blood is life, and to share it is to share life itself. The future of blood science is both practical and profound. It promises better treatments, safer transfusions, and cures for disorders long endured. It points toward artificial substitutes, genetic corrections, nanotechnology, and precision diagnostics. Yet it also continues the story of reverence, the sense that in blood there is something more than molecules, something that speaks to connection, resilience, and hope. Each discovery builds upon the past, from the ancient awe of blood as sacred, to Harvey's discovery of circulation, to Landsteiner's revelation of blood types, to the therapies of today. The river flows forward, carrying not only life but also knowledge, moving always toward new horizons. To reflect on the future of blood science is to see that this story is not complete. It is a river still flowing, still branching, still finding new courses. The mysteries of blood are not exhausted, they are unfolding, and as they unfold, they will continue to shape medicine, culture, and the human story, just as they always have. The river of blood, ancient and eternal, flows not only through our bodies but through our past and future alike, carrying with it the promise of discovery, healing, and life renewed. 20. Conclusion. The endless river. As we come to the close of this long reflection, the river of blood still flows, steady and unbroken, through every moment of life, from the very first beat of the embryonic heart to the final quiet rhythm at life's end. It has carried us, sustained us, and bound us to the world in which we live. We have traced its path from cells to plasma, from clotting to immunity, from ancient beliefs to modern science, and from cultural meanings to the possibilities of the future. Yet, no matter how far the exploration extends, the essence remains the same. Blood is life in motion. It is the current that nourishes, protects, cleanses, and unites, a river both physical and symbolic, both scientific and sacred. The story of blood begins in silence, within the hidden chambers of the body. There, red cells drift in countless numbers, each one carrying oxygen, each one surrendering it with quiet generosity. White cells patrol with vigilance, small but steadfast guardians who shield us from harm. Platelets wait patiently for the signal of injury, ready to weave their healing fabric. Plasma, the silent sea, carries them all, bearing nutrients, hormones, and wastes, linking organ to organ, tissue to tissue, cell to cell. Together, they form a system so intricate and balanced that it sustains life without pause, without demand for our attention, without rest. It is a system that seems ordinary only because it is constant. Yet in truth, it is extraordinary, a masterpiece of nature's design. We have seen how the river of blood is not only a transporter but also a regulator. It warms and cools, balances acids and bases, maintains fluid equilibrium, and carries signals of communication. It is both courier and caretaker, messenger and mediator. We have seen, too, how it can falter in anemia, in clotting disorders, in cancers of the blood. These disorders remind us of the fragility of life, of the fine balance upon which we depend. Yet we have also seen resilience, the ways in which medicine has learned to support the river when it weakens, to transfuse, to replenish, to restore. Blood is both vulnerable and enduring, both fragile and strong. The river of blood is also the river of history. In ancient times, it was revered as sacred, offered in sacrifice, honored as the essence of vitality. It was woven into myths, rituals, and philosophies, from the four humors of Greece to the bloodletting of Rome, from the sacred offerings of Mesoamerica to the energetic flows of China. In the age of discovery, it became a subject of experiment and observation. Harvey mapped its circulation. Malpighi revealed its capillaries. Leeuwenhoek described its cells. In the modern age, it became the foundation of medicine itself, typed, transfused, stored, analyzed, and studied with precision. Blood has always been more than fluid. It has been symbol, science, and story, carrying meaning as surely as it carries oxygen. In culture, blood has remained a symbol of connection and sacrifice. It ties families together through bloodlines, seals covenants through ritual pacts, and represents courage in the shedding of blood for others. It is invoked in poetry and song, in myths of immortality and legends of kinship. Even in everyday language, we speak of blood to mean loyalty, passion, energy, and identity. It is the metaphor that never loses power, the image that always speaks to something deeper than the physical. To lose blood is to lose life. To share blood is to share existence. To spill blood is to mark the world with something unforgettable. The future of blood science promises still more wonders. Artificial substitutes may one day flow where natural blood is absent. Stem cells may provide endless supplies of red cells and platelets, tailored to each individual. Genetic therapies may cure disorders once thought permanent, editing the very instructions of blood's creation. Nanotechnology may send tiny helpers into the bloodstream, carrying medicines and repairing tissues. Diagnostics may read health from a single drop of blood, mapping risks and guiding care with precision. The river of blood will remain natural, but it will also become enhanced, supported by human ingenuity, guided by discoveries yet to come. And yet, even as science advances, the essence of blood does not change. It remains the red current that flows through every vein and artery, the stream that carries breath from lung to cell, the tide that returns wastes for cleansing. It remains the hidden guardian, the healer in miniature, the silent messenger. It remains the symbol of kinship and sacrifice, the substance of ritual and meaning. It remains life itself, in motion and in balance, in mystery and in knowledge. Science may reveal its details, culture may shape its meaning, but at its heart, blood remains what it has always been, the endless river of life. To reflect on blood is to reflect on ourselves. We are sustained by its flow, shaped by its history, connected by its symbolism, and guided by its future. Each beat of the heart sends it onward. Each breath renews it. Each moment depends upon it. The river flows through us, and we flow with it, inseparable, unceasing, unending. It is the quiet companion of every life, the unseen rhythm beneath every moment of being. Thus, as this reflection draws to a close, the river continues, undisturbed. It flows through infants taking their first breaths, through children running in play, through adults working and resting, through elders watching the turning of years. It flows through every culture, every history, every future. It is the endless river, flowing through all who live, carrying life, carrying meaning, carrying us onward. To know it is to marvel, to respect, and to feel gratitude for the silent current that sustains us. Blood, the river of life, flows on, eternal, unbroken, and complete.